Welcome back, friends. It's time for a new Kirby's Dreamcast, the oldest Kirby podcast. I'm your host, Lost Scarf. Here we talk about everything Kirby, from the games to the manga to the anime and more. That's Kirby's Dreamcast. Everything Kirby will eventually be covered here with as much attention to detail as possible, so you can learn everything about Kirby here, with some infusion of my own thoughts and opinions because, well, it's my podcast. We're on all podcasting platforms and on YouTube. The YouTube version has footage or stills showing what I'm talking about if you want to watch and follow along instead of just listening. I do think you should do that for the gaming episodes because we spend so many hours editing that. Because there's gameplay footage and I try to back it up with what I'm saying, so you get visuals and everything for that. Give us a follow on YouTube if you haven't. The better analytics will help us meet more people because the algorithm likes that stuff. Same thing with comments. Also, just comment anyway because I do respond to all comments. Because I like talking about Kirby. So the more comments, the more people that will see Kirby, so I can talk with more people about stuff with the comments. So yeah, it just feeds itself. I like talking about Kirby. I like doing some of the theory stuff, not too much, but I do like talking about Kirby in general. I love Kirby a lot. And yeah, more comments about it would be fun. And if you're not a YouTube person, then if you're on iTunes, 5 stars, or just be truthful with how you feel about it. I do read those reviews, and I do feel pretty good about myself when I see those reviews. Everyone just keeps giving 5s and 4s, so that makes me happy. And if you're on anything else, I don't think there's any other ratings, so just enjoy. So today's episode is, of course, Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, so the YouTube version will have lots of footage to look at. We will be going over every single interesting fact I can find about Kirby 64 as I go over all of its background details and gameplay. I don't think I've made this clear, but all gaming episodes are done after I 100% the game. I feel that's the best way to get the full feel of the game and sense for it, so I know what I'm looking for when I do research for the podcast episode. I do not look forward to 100%ing Kirby Fighters 2 and Dream Buffet, because that's just a lot of busy work to be honest, but it is what it is. But before we get started, let's do some other news like birthdays. It's March 2026, so happy birthday month to Kirby's Dream Land 2, Kirby Superstar, Kirby Dream Land 3, Kirby 64, and Kirby's Canvas Curse in Japan. Now for the world releases, Kirby Star Allies, Kirby's Epic Yarn, Extra Epic Yarn I mean, and Kirby and the Forgotten Land all came out in March for world release. Now for merch news, here's the big one. There's a chatty Kirby toy that is coming out April 26 in Japan by Bandai. I'm going to be in Japan at that time, so I'm going to personally be buying one of those for myself. It's a talking Kirby toy that reacts to things. I'm going to be a 40-year-old, 5-year-old for a little bit with that toy. Because, yeah, look, if you don't want to grow up, don't grow up. That's just how I feel about it. Senai is releasing a plush of the Kirby Car Mouthful Mode Kirby cake. It's cute and silly. I might buy one. It'll come out mid-April, so I need to seek out and find this one too. I'm bringing a big suitcase for everybody. Aside from that, there's the new Kirby jewelry, Kirby cafe desserts, and Kirby cafe food that they just keep making new stuff every month. Lastly is the amiibos for Air Riders. Kirby Bandana D and Meta Knight are now out, with Meta Knight coming out last March, this March I mean. And we got news, 2 more amiibos being Kirby on the Dragoon and the new racer being on the Hydra to be announced. King Dedede's Air Riders amiibo will be out on the 2nd of July. Chef Kawasaki is still to be announced. Newest milestone for the podcast, we've now reached 150,000 downloads in the podcasting world. We have also broken 700 subs on YouTube. We're getting up and up over time, so that's good. I'm hoping to hit 1K on YouTube, though, by the end of the year. And the light novel, full dub, and things like that should really help. This is important to name your sources. So my sources are the official Nintendo website, the official Kirby's website, because you can still way back some of that and see it. My own memory at the time, because I did grow up with Kirby. YouTube and Google for just details that I need to go back and pause for. Various wikis, so Wikipedia, Fandom Kirby, Wii Kirby, and then Rainbow Resort, and a bunch of forums as well. I went all over the place. Also credits I get from Nintendo fandom since they have articles on various staff, and Moby Games since their format makes it easy to see where all these staff people worked on other games. Like seriously, if you're curious about the credits of somebody and just what they've done, go to Moby Games. Because if you click on them, it'll show you all their games and what they did as different staff things, and then you can click on those games to see just so much information on credits. That's if you're interested in people. So it's been a year since last gaming episode, so here's the format on these deep dives into the games. So these full deep dive gaming episodes usually go in this order of sections. First, we'll talk about the status of HAL as a company since the last game. Second, background on the making of Kirby 64. Third, advertising and tie-ins for Kirby 64. Fourth, how well did it sell? Fifth, the box art and game manual. Sixth, the game itself. I'm going to try to weave the game into a big story with Kirby, so I'm going to talk about everything that's happening, like the stages, the enemies Kirby runs into, how often Kirby's going to see these enemies, the powers, things like that. Seventh is any last interesting facts or glitches left to mention that I didn't mention in the middle of anything. 8 is going to be the credits and interesting facts about the staff. These people go through some very interesting journeys. And lastly, my reflection on the game and where I put it as far as ranking between all the games I've previously covered. So, lock in for a long one. Section 1. The history of HAL up to this point. Kirby Superstar Stacker released on February 1st of 1998, then Kirby's Dream Land 3 released a month later in Japan on March 27th, 1998. By the way, I missed this detail, the February release of Superstar Stacker was the Nintendo Power Flash service, then the release of the cartridge itself was in June 1999, a year later. We're going to ignore that when we talk about HAL going forward because Superstar Stacker did not sell well all that much. Quick note on the Nintendo Power Flash service, just learned about it since we never got it in the US. This was a Japanese thing where you could copy games onto a cartridge at a kiosk from Nintendo for a lower price than if you bought the game cartridge itself. Nice to have a cheaper option. This ran for 10 years from 1997 to 2007, well into the N64 age. Still nice for people who just wanted to play SNES games. He also had a cartridge for Game Boy as well. Kirby 64 came out on March 24th, 2000 in Japan and June 26th, 2000 in the US. So what happened between February of 1998 and June of 2000 in HAL Labs? That's the question here. By the way, Tilt and Tumble comes out a couple months later, so we'll see how much there is to talk about when we get to that game next. So at this point, with SNES done, the Halcon logo disappears, and we get the new logo that has lasted up to today. The Inu Tamago, which just means dog egg. That's the big dog with 3 eggs under it, you all know that symbol. It was created by Shigesato Itoi, and the imagery was meant to represent an unexpected bond, one that brings the birth of something new. Which, yeah, a dog taking care of 3 eggs is an interesting thing. The first game to get the logo was, of course, Super Smash Bros., which was made by Masahiro Sakurai in 1999, but before HAL was credited with the creation of Super Smash Bros., they're credited with Pokemon Stadium because Satoru Iwata was working with the development of that game. I really need to do an episode on Satoru Iwata someday. Satoru Iwata was known as the programming Superman. In a previous episode, I told y'all about how, thanks to Iwata, they're able to double the size of Pokemon Gold and Silver. So Nintendo and the Pokemon Company are working on Pokemon Stadium, and he comes in to help because he's a programming genius, and he's able to port the Pokemon Red and Green battle system to Pokemon Stadium in a week. He looked at the source code and just figured it out what to do on his own. According to Tsunekazu Ishihara, the president of the Pokemon Company, Iwata was instrumental in bringing Pokemon to Western markets. So HAL is getting a lot of prestige and love because of Masahiro Sakurai and Satoru Iwata. But HAL themselves were no slouch. They came in with their own games with Pokemon Snap for the N64 and Pokemon Pinball. Pokemon Snap was originally another game called Jack and Beans, which is based on Jack and the Beanstalk, but you took pictures. But this was morphed into Pokemon Snap over time. They started development in 1995, so while other teams were working on Kirby, another team was working on this. HAL Laboratory has always been known for experimentation, so it kind of is no surprise Pokemon Snap came from HAL. Other features went into Earthbound 64, which I never knew about because it never released. Pokemon Pinball was more straightforward. They used the code for Kirby's Pinball Land to make Pokemon Pinball, and it shows. It was a solid game that I enjoyed. I also enjoyed Pokemon Snap back in the day. By the way, you could print the pictures you took in Pokemon Snap at places like Blockbuster Video. I'm pretty sure I have the pictures of Mew somewhere in my stuff. Also, I remember picture I think like 3 Charmanders or 4 Charmanders, if I remember correctly. You know, I may cover Super Smash Bros. Someday after we cover all the Kirby games in 10 years, because you know, they count as Kirby games in my book. So then SimCity 64 comes out next before Kirby 64. SimCity 64 was made for the Nintendo 64 DD, which was Japan only, so we never got to see this game here in the US. So to summarize, Pokemon Stadium, then Super Smash Bros., which is a huge hit and makes Kirby really strong, so good advertising for Kirby. After that, HAL made Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Pinball in 1999, then lastly they made SimCity 64 in 2000 before releasing Kirby 64. They've always had like 2 teams at a minimum working on things, sometimes 3, as you can see with Sakurai here, working on Smash Brothers, while other teams were working on what eventually became Pokemon Snap and Kirby 64. Masahiro Sakurai and Satoru Iwata are making themselves into figures that Nintendo will eventually want to take greater advantage of in the future, which is potentially overshadowing other members of HAL staff at this point, but they are pretty bright stars, so you get it. One last thing they mentioned is Kirby Bowl 64. It was in development since 1995 and even had dev footage and screenshots and everything. This, of course, would be Kirby's Dream Course for the 64, fully 3D, and it looks so fun. I am kinda sad this game never got made. It was going to be a launch title for the 64. Kirby's Dream Course came out in 94, so they were already working on this thing while they were finishing up the last one, so that's nuts. How many teams were active at this time? Dreamland 2 was being developed at this time. Black Ball came out right after Dreamland 2, so Shimamura was working on 3 after 2, so it wasn't his team. So there was a third or even a fourth team working on Kirby Bowl 64. Something interesting is Kirby rode a star like a snowboard on the stages, guessing it was a power or something. This leads to early development of Kirby Air Ride 64, so maybe Sakurai was working on this. Of course, Air Ride got put on hiatus and returned later on the GameCube, so I had to do a deeper dive on Kirby Bowl 64 then, because it leads to Air Ride 64, and then it leads to that game. Parts of this game were incorporated into other games like Japan Open Tour 64, that's a golf game. Other things like the camera got put into Jack and Bean's game, which is a wild thing to hear. And then, of course, there's some stuff they got put into Earthbound 64. So that's just crazy. That's just, what the heck, wild stuff. Section 2, Background in the Making of Kirby 64. As we know, this game is the third and final installment of the Dark Matter Trilogy with the director Shinichi Shimomura. It started development in September 1997, right after they finished making Kirby's Dream Land 3, and finished development in February of 2000. This would be Kirby's first 3D graphics game, but they maintained 2D movement as was tradition until Kirby and the Forgotten Land. We did have 3D movement with Kirby's Air Ride and Kirby's Blowout Blast subgame, but they weren't mainline games, so they kinda do and kinda don't count. At first, they were developing for Nintendo 64 DD before moving over to the N64. Early prototypes had more complex controls that used the Z button and the analog stick, but test kids had troubles with those, so they simplified to D-pad controls. This is around the time Makiko Emoto's career with Kirby starts. This was her second Kirby voice job, first being Smash Bros, and good timing too since the anime would be coming soon. It's interesting hearing her different Kirby sounds in the sound test. Something that I'm sad about is learning that they originally were going to make King Dedede, Waddle, and Adeleine playable characters with their own levels, or at least entries into levels, or they got to do all the levels themselves. It's hard to tell because there are screenshots, and so it leads to some theory crafting on that. This finally comes true later with Star Allies. We know they tried with Kirby GameCube first, but that also got scrapped. We kinda still got this with King Dedede piggyback sections and Kirby riding with Waddle Dee, and with Adeleine helping here and there, and there's also the finale with Ribbon for the final battle. So the crew still helped Kirby, but not as in-depth as they could have in the original plans. There are concept drawings showing what they were considering to do with Waddle Dee, where he could carry enemies and then hide in a house. That's random. The concept could be found on HAL's website and in the Dream Collection, which is fascinating. On screen, there will be some images for the YouTube side. You can find these images yourself online. There's concept art showing Ku, which means the Animal Friends were likely in development as well at one point, but they decided to go with the crew they ended up with instead of bringing back the Animal Friends. Nintendo.com in 1999 has images of King Dedede, Adeleine, and Waddle Dee in levels as well, which I mentioned earlier. And from digging more from just finding that, I found that it was likely going to be a full cast of Kirby and his allies, but the final game just didn't do it. Because there is art showing Kirby, all of his Animal Friends, King Dedede, Waddle Dee, and Adeleine, and Ribbon, so it looks like it might have been a thing where you could select a character to work with Ribbon, or even Ribbon herself does the levels herself. This, of course, was very early in development, so they cut it down for space and time. The best clue is the numbers on the image, which is 98-10-30 for October 30th, 1998. They thought they were going to release the game this early. Just wow. And considering they worked on this for 3 years, wow, that's a lot of work that they were thinking about doing, but they ended up not doing because, well, they're doing a new system, there's a lot of stuff they had to do, new levels. There's a lot of work that goes into game development. People don't realize it's just a lot. But something that proves that they were considering the Animal Friends is that if you go into the files, you can find that there's music for the Animal Friends despite them not being in the game. Sound Test Track 2 is the Animal Friends theme. I couldn't find anything official for where they came up with power mixing, but it makes sense that Kirby would do this if he didn't have the Animal Friends to do combination powers with. So it's possible they were originally thinking maybe he would still do the mixes with all these different characters, or they would have their own things they could do, and they had power mixing, or just power mixing was the thing they came up with because they didn't have the animals. There's a lot of supposition there, but it is what it is when you want to consider, like, why didn't they do this or that, or why did they do this and that. Section 3. Advertising and tie-ins for Kirby 64. As usual, the Western advertisement made Kirby something's dangerous or mean. First, let's talk about the Face of Terror advertisement. This was in the Western books, and I love it. It's just a cute image of Kirby looking at us, but there's a bunch of hilarious descriptions and arrows pointing at him. I'm going to list them out, but you can see them on the YouTube version. Pink color makes him seem innocent. Pipsqueak size gives him a nasty attitude. Arms chuck bombs with amazing accuracy. Versatile skin sprouts spikes, turns into rock. Highly flammable. Spits fire to destroy enemies. Evil grin. Blubber hides massive arsenal. Cold-blooded stare. Just wow at some of these. Nice references to things, but wow, it's a little insulting to Kirby about his weight, huh? Now for the TV commercial in the US. The US commercial is an adoption drive called Adopt a Critter. First they show a cat in a basket and talk about the cat, then a dog in a basket to adopt. Lastly, they go to Kirby, and it's not a bad CG Kirby. He's cutely staring at us while this lady says Kirby is part fire and part bomb, spike, and lightning, and he likes to combine these in new ways to destroy his enemies, and they show us gameplay footage. So the lady says they have 3 wonderful, and then Kirby fires a rocket and we hear a cat scream and a dog howl, and then she says 2 wonderful pets to adopt. I think you might initially be thinking Kirby blew up an animal, but we see the dog and cat looking at the game box later in the ad, so she's implying Kirby isn't wonderful, which is a lie. Now there was also a straightforward US commercial showing off Kirby gameplay and explaining the game. I was surprised by that. Now for the Japanese side, the commercial was only 15 seconds. It shows Kirby can combine powers to make things by spinning and making a blender sound. First we see Needle Kirby, and Kirby jumps up and gets stuck in the ceiling. That's a wild one. Then they show some gameplay and Kirby's so cute, voiced by Makiko Emoto. Another Japanese commercial has Kirby eat fire and stone to become Volcano Kirby, and he shoots around before aiming at the camera. A third one has Kirby do Stone to become a giant golem. He walked and falls to the floor. Pretty funny. Interestingly, Brazil had a print ad with Kirby standing on a blender with enemies inside the blender. For tie-ins, there was a 4-panel theater trilogy of Kirby 64 manga, and I own them. People have been translating them, and they are hilarious. One has Kirby seeing how powerful Bomb Cutter is, which is the exploding ninja star, and he loves it, but then he accidentally blows up a rice ball and recognizes this weapon is too terrifying to wield. All the main casts are pretty fun in the manga, really. Another one has Kirby impressing Adeleine with spark power, but then he gets hungry, so Adeleine gives him food, but it's a battery, so Kirby's like, no! There's a 4th Kirby 64 manga, but it's from a different group, but it's also quite funny. And I think it implies that Choo Choo might be Kirby's ex-girlfriend or girlfriend, because of course they imply Ribbon has romantic feelings for Kirby in that one. Because yeah, with the ending, we get that feeling there. Section 4. How well did it sell? Kirby 64 sold 1.77 million copies worldwide. 1.07 million of that was from Japan, and 540,000 copies were in the US. The rest were from the rest of the world. Pretty good sales figures, especially after Kirby's Dream Land 3, which was considered the worst-selling mainline Kirby game of all time, and still is, unfortunately. Well, I guess fortunately, which means the worst is in the past, and hopefully never happens again in the future. So good job recovering Hal and Kirby. As of March 2026, this is the 9th best-selling Kirby game of all time. We can contribute Kirby 64's success to being on a new console, and on the drought of Kirby games up to this point, and on the fact it's a fun game. Section 5. The box art and game manual. Box art first. So the US and Japanese boxes are similar, but the US box is more horizontal while the Japanese box is more vertical. The character models are all the same, with Kirby standing in the center, very cutely staring at us, with King Dedede in the bottom left of Kirby, Ribbon the top left of Kirby, Adeleine top right of Kirby, and Waddle Dee bottom right of Kirby. The US version has the title above Kirby, while the Japanese version has him standing over the title. The back of the Japanese box shows Kirby cutely sitting on the title with some writing, and shows the boss fight with Wispy Woods, a cutscene with Adeleine, and checkerboard chase. For the US box, it's 5 images: Kirby's in Cutter, King Dedede carrying Kirby through a stage, Kirby using Needle, Kirby using Fire Cutter, and a different checkerboard chase. The back of the box says, dart past enemies, soar the skies, and swim the depths of the ocean as Kirby takes on dark matter in an all-new adventure. Inhale, exhale, and swallow your enemies, then copy and combine their abilities and use them as your own. Team up with familiar friends and foes like Waddle Dee and King Dedede as you travel through dreamy worlds in search of the lost crystal shards. Copy, and combine abilities. Steal enemy weapons, copy enemy abilities, then mix and match for dozens of new special attacks, ranging from a lightning-charged boulder to a refrigerator barrage of lethal leftovers. Venture beyond Dreamland to 6 different planes featuring everything from a barren lava landscape to a futuristic candy factory. Platform action lovers are in for a real treat. Blast, bash, and dash through 3 bonus multiplayer games. Uncover mini-games like 100-Yard Hop and Bumper Crop Bump for fun-filled 4-player action. I think the back of the box does a good job of conveying what's the gameplay and that there's mini-games and just what you can do with it. I just never heard of COP before for copy, and combine abilities. I guess that's recopying? That's a weird one right there. So I looked up a dictionary. So one of the COP definitions is to obtain something. So that's what they're doing here. Obtain, copy, and combine abilities. So yeah. I like that it shows a ridiculous power like Swiss Army Knife Kirby and the cool Fire Sword. Also that it mentions 100-Yard Hop and Bumper Crop Bump, but not the minigame they're showing, Checkerboard Chase. The game manual has a basic cover on the US side, but a lot of great information inside. First it goes over the instruction cutscene and says, the Crystal Shards. In a distant corner of the galaxy, fairies lived peacefully on the planet called Ripple Star. But one day a mysterious black cloud appeared and surrounded the peaceful planet. The Cloud, a sinister force known as Dark Matter, had come in search of the fairy's secret treasure, their shining crystal. A fairy named Ribbon knew that dreadful things would come to pass if Dark Matter gained the control of the powerful crystal. She grabbed the shining stone and escaped from Ripplestar, just before the planet was completely engulfed. But as Ribbon fled, 3 dark clouds split from the mass of Dark Matter to chase her through space. And when they caught up with her and attacked, the fairy's crystal shattered into tiny shards, which dropped like falling stars onto the many planets in the solar system. Still holding one of the crystal shards, Ribbon fell onto the planet called Popstar, where perhaps by fate, she ran smack into Kirby. After hearing her desperate plight, Kirby resolved to help Ribbon recover all the crystal shards. What a good boy Kirby is. And then it says, and so Kirby's latest adventure begins. Now also they show images of the opening cutscene, and then they have like little bits for the cutscenes. I'll read those two real quick. The fairies look skyward as their piece is about to be shattered. The strange black cloud approaches, spreading across the sky in an instant. And Ripplestar is suddenly engulfed by Dark Matter. To protect the precious crystal, Ribbon grabs it and flees from Ripplestar as Dark Matter ascends. But the nervy fairy is pursued and attacked. The crystal is shattered and its shards scattered across the solar system. Meanwhile, a familiar figure sits gazing at the night sky, lost in thought. When he sees Ribbon's sad and troubled face, Kirby decides to help her recover the crystal shards. The interesting thing about this is, of course, fate bringing Dark Matter to face Kirby once again for the third and final time. Then again, it is Dark Matter just gambling here on the fact that it's going to fight Kirby again, because it is invading something that's near his planet. The next page goes over how controls work, and the top is a cute image of Kirby over the name of the section. This is the same image they use in each new section title. It's Kirby doing his usual one leg and arm up and one leg and arm down pose. For the most part, the manual of course explains everything. The controls, the menus, the powers, how to get powers, the mini-games, the rail sections in the stages, power mixing, and lastly details on the characters. Something fun is little bits it says under Kirby with some sections such as, Kirby's a cool character with many talents. Kirby's copy ability has evolved. Here's what you can do after inhaling. Make the most of the items you find. Now it's time to relax and have a little fun. Last page says, finally it's time to introduce the cast of characters. The last page says, friend or foe, and describes the cast, which is, Kirby naturally is the hero of this tale. Kind and jolly by nature, he turns tough guy to lend his storied talents to the imperiled fairies of the Ripplestar planet. Surely he'll be able to recover the crystal shards. Ribbon, a fairy from Ripplestar. Ribbon escapes the planet with the fairy's crystal, only to fall victim to a Dark Matter ambush. When she loses control of the crystal, she turns to Kirby for help. King Dedede. Longtime rival King Dedede finds one of the missing crystal shards on his castle grounds. Whatever will he do with it? Waddle Dee. Kirby cohort Waddle Dee gets himself in gobs of trouble when he happens upon another of the powerful shards. Adeleine. Adeleine, an aspiring young artist, comes to Popstar to study art, but finds herself in the middle of a Dark Matter mess. Interestingly, I think this is the first game to establish Kirby and Waddle Dee as friends, also the first time King Dedede has been an active ally. You could count Kirby's adventure, but could you really? You didn't include Kirby into the plan, which caused a whole mess of problems. You could argue that he was prideful, his solution was to leave Nightmare in the fountain and keep watch, but because of this, the Dreamlanders weren't getting any good dreams anymore. That's the whole reason Kirby rose to action. But I digress. It's a good game manual, so let's move on. Section 6, the game itself. And here we are, the biggest section of the episode because I go over all the details of all the levels and try to tell a story as we go. For the sake of keeping things straight so you know where all the crystals are in each level, I'll mention Kirby coming back later with the correct power, and got the crystal with footage showing that. Real quick rundown of the game, Kirby platforms through 2.5D worlds with the new gimmick ability of power combos, which is power mixing. The powers alone are classic powers, while the mixtures are interesting new powers. Kirby wants to collect 3 crystal shards per level, some requiring a specific power to get, and beat the game. The game can be beaten without all crystal shards, but the true ending requires all shards. That makes sense. I'll tell the levels as a story and talk about every enemy at least once, same with bosses and allies, and the powers. So buckle up everybody, let's go! In the beginning, we see Ribbon with her fellow fairies out and about, but then a dark cloud surrounds the planet Ripplestar. It looks like a happy smiling planet, and that's wild. Ribbon rushes to the castle and Queen Ripple is freaking out. Ribbon grabs the crystal and flies away, but then 3 dark clouds break off from the mass and we see 3 smaller dark matters. We learn from the official Nintendo guidebook for Kirby 64 in Japan that their names are Dark Rimuru, Dark Rimura, and Dark Rimuro. The 3 dark matter slam into Ribbon and the crystal repeatedly until it breaks and she falls to Popstar. Then we get the title screen and we see the cast of the game we will be playing looking in random directions. From the title screen you can select your file, the main game, sub-game, enemy info cards, and settings. Interestingly, when you first start the game you get a tutorial which has the checkerboard background, reminiscent of Kirby Superstar. I can't remember if that's the first time the checker pattern was used, but here it is again. We learn about inhale and copy ability and power mixing called Power Combo. We get to see Fire Needle make Fire Arrow, and Needle with Rock making a drill. Then back to the story. Kirby enjoys sitting and looking at the night sky. There's more shooting stars than normal. Then BAM! Right in the back of Kirby's head, he gets hit by Ribbon as she crashes into him. She has one crystal shard with her, and Kirby shows her the one he found on the ground as well. Then the two combine and Ribbon gets filled with hope. She tells Kirby her plight, that the shooting stars are actually shards from her planet's crystal, and he tells her he will help. Good thing Kirby's the strongest being on Popstar and a killer of dark matter. Some mysterious power must be bringing them together here, right? Kirby and Ribbon then rush off to look for shards on the planet Popstar first. So the adventure begins in a green field. Kirby in 1-1 looks back at a moment to find a star, and then he ventures forth. First running to NZ, a mysterious being that Kirby has never seen before. They remind him of Waddle Dees, but darker and with pointy ears. Which is very interesting because we only encounter them in this game and only on 3 planets, Popstar, Ripplestar, and Darkstar. The only places dark matter hits in the game. So they must be generated from dark matter somehow, and we'll confirm later on that yeah, that is in fact what's happening. Kirby is at first curious, but eats them up and finds they have no power. Then he runs into Sir Kibble and Punk and eats them to gain Cutter and Needle abilities respectively. Punk is a new enemy. They look like Togezo but different. They have a green shell and spines. They're potentially corrupted Togezo since this is the only time Kirby will encounter them. Punk is short for Puncture, and their Japanese name is Dango. Short for Pillbugs, which are called Okadongo Mushi. Mushi means insect, so Dango's like a rounding, so there you go. Sir Kibble, on the other hand, has fought Kirby many times. He's in every mainline Kirby game and Superstar Stacker. But why is he fighting Kirby now? To challenge him to see how far his skills have come, of course, but they're still lacking against Kirby. So with their powers, Kirby generates the Bear Trap ability. Kirby stretches his body out into 2 big teeth, and Kirby realizes, oh wow, the Crystal Shards must have let me control 2 copy abilities at once. This is great! He then chomps on a Bobo, a walking fire creature Kirby has only met once before during the 3rd Dreamland adventure. After a couple more chomps, Kirby decides to mix more powers and mixes Cutter from Sir Kibble with fire from Bobo to make a badass fire sword. Kirby pulls the sword out of his mouth because he forged it inside himself, and he swings it around with great skill. Eventually, Kirby finds the first crystal shard, a 1-1 in the air. Kirby then walks into a log cabin where a family of NZ are generating more NZ. Kirby recognizes this might not be good and does pest control with his flame sword, killing it with fire. Next, Kirby tries Cutter ability on its own, and finds instead of throwing a blade, he throws his own face as a blade. It makes him dizzy, but it's an interesting way to do things. He tries to throw his face at longtime enemy Bronto Burt, who's just minding his own business by the way, but Kirby misses. Kirby will need more practice. By the way, Bronto Burt has been in every Kirby game so far except Star Stacker. That's it, that's crazy. Then he encounters Shatso and doesn't bother them since Shatso isn't fun or yummy to deal with. Kirby last saw Shatso during his 3rd big adventure in Dreamland. Then he goes double Cutter and his face becomes a huge serrated blade. After some rampaging, Kirby finds it's a bit too dangerous and runs into Papa Bros Jr. What great timing! Just like Shatso, Piper Bros Jr. has been someone Kirby's dealt with many times. But the last time he saw Piper Bros Jr. was in Super Star Stacker. Piper Bros Jr. tries to prank Kirby with a bomb, but Kirby eats the bomb and them to gain the bomb ability. Kirby then runs into Glunk, who hasn't bothered him since his 3rd adventure in Dreamland. Kirby bombs them because they're always mean to him. Then Ribbon senses a crystal under a black rock, and Kirby blows it up, and yay, 2nd crystal found. Kirby then combines Bomb with Bobo Fire to make himself into a fireworks machine. Kirby explodes 3 times at a time, and it makes lots of fireworks. So that's really fun, but it doesn't hurt him, so good for Kirby. Cut to Waddle Dee, and he sees a crystal shard and picks it up out of curiosity. But then Dark Rimuru attacks Waddle Dee, and the camera cuts to Kirby and Ribbon finding Waddle Dee on the ground covered in shadow. Kirby happily waves at him, and Waddle Dee gets up and reveals a giant eye? Waddle Doo? Kirby wonders if he was mistaken, but then they attack like a possessed Waddle Dee would. Not like a possessed Waddle Doo would attack him, Kirby thinks. This is because they rush at Kirby instead of using Beam Attack. The Waddle Doo runs at Kirby but trips and starts crying. Kirby takes pity but knows he needs to do something about this possession. Quick aside, I just noticed it really did make him into Waddle Doo. He has the 2 antenna hairs like Waddle Doo. Maybe Waddle Doos are dark matter possessed Waddle Dees? But Waddle Doos come from Krakow. Maybe Waddle Doos are just angry Waddle Dees or something? The mystery grows, I really don't know. So Kirby uses the fireworks ability to blind Waddle Doo into submission, and Kirby grabs the 3rd crystal shard from them. As the dark matter flies away, Kirby and Ribbon high-five in success and then head off to get the next shard. Kirby doesn't check on Waddle Dee because he knows Waddle Dee is tough. He's in fact okay and back to normal and decides to join their quest. Kirby is happy to see his friend join them and off they go. They then decide to take a picnic break, and to ensure Kirby can't eat all the food at once, On his own, they convince Kirby to play a bonus game where he has to jump at the food he wants whenever it's break time. Kirby agrees and enjoys various meals throughout their journey. This is where players can get food, 1-ups, and enemy info cards. Also stars. And if you don't grab anything, Kirby cries because he didn't get any food. It's very sad, so I make sure I don't miss. The trio then move on to the second area in Pop Star, so level 1-2. Ribbon senses a cluster of crystals in this area. This time they're in an autumn forest. Kirby rushes forward and first encounters a mite coming out of the ground. They're like a ball-shaped weird gopher thing with a beak. Kirby gets surprised and clocks them immediately. Kirby's never seen them before and never will again after this adventure. The dark matters or crystals must have made them manifest. Mite's Japanese name is Hyoko, which means chick, so that's even weirder. Kirby then gets Bomb and Cutter from Poppy Bros. Jr. and Sir Kibble, and he gains exploding ninja stars. Kirby immediately blows up a Bumber, which is a floating head with an umbrella that doesn't give parasol ability. This is another creature Kirby has never seen before and won't meet again in like Mite from earlier. Kirby's quite puzzled by all these new creatures. By the way, Bumber is short for Bumbershoot, which is another name for umbrella, and its Japanese name is Raka, which is based on the phrase falling in Japanese. Kirby also explodes a curious creature called Cairn. It's 3 rocks stacked together that makes a sentient creature. Same deal as Bumber and Mite. He's never going to see them again after this. So a cairn is a pile of rocks to make a grave, so that's dark. The Japanese name is Godopyon, which is 2 onomatopoeias, Godo for rolling objects, and Pion for hopping. I'm starting to wonder if later HAL developers just didn't like these enemies or what, since we only see them in this one game. Kirby rampages through with the exploding ninja stars for a while, then Kirby encounters a familiar enemy, Bouncy T! He doesn't run into her and her sisters often, but they haven't forgotten their last fight with Kirby, which was during his 3rd adventure in Dreamland. And they come to blows, but Kirby's bomb stars are way too good. Kirby becomes full of pride in his new power, but then he encounters a Gordo, and it's still invincible. Kirby is humbled. Gordo, the nearly indestructible iron ball with spikes, is an enemy Kirby has had to fight since his first big adventure in Dreamland. This dreaded foe is in every single Kirby game to keep Kirby humble. Oh boy, I did not describe Bouncy T. Bouncy T is like a ball-shaped creature with a ribbon, and they bounce on like a spring. That's it. Before entering a big tree, Kirby encounters Sparky. And Sparky is this little green, like, slime little guy with, like, arms and stuff. He's kind of weird looking. Like a little slime is the best way to put it. And Kirby last saw them in his 3rd adventure in Dreamland, and he considers getting electric ability and does so when he finds one in the tree. He combines it with Punk for Needle with Electric Needle, and he becomes a lightning rod. A lightning rod inside a tree. Oh dear. Kirby then lights up some scary spider monsters named Pupa. They remind him of Como, but they aren't them. These new creatures must be caused by these new happenings on Popstar, Kirby thinks. Pupa's like just an upside down like spider bud egg thing. That's all it is. Then to Kirby's surprise, he finds Chili in the tree. Things are really going weird. Chili is a long-time resident of Popstar that has fought Kirby many times, like others, and Kirby last saw them on his 3rd big adventure in Dreamland. Upon leaving the big tree, Kirby finds Waddle Dee has rigged together a wooden platform to carry Kirby to the next tree over, and it's Waddle Dee powered. What a great builder Waddle Dee is, and kind of foreshadowing for Forgotten Land. Along the ride, Kirby picks up star pieces and then is led by them to the first crystal shard in the area. After arriving at the next tree, Kirby waves thanks and moves on in. He encounters a big Bouncy T. She's mad because Kirby's been picking on her sisters, and she's not wrong. But Kirby's lightning rod is too powerful, and in her defeat, she drops a crystal shard and Kirby and Ribbon grab it. During this fight, Adeleine is enjoying painting. She then finds a crystal shard next to her and then gets attacked by Dark Matter after she was admiring the crystal. After the fight with Bouncy T, Kirby and the trio find Adeleine. Kirby hard stops and Waddle Dee crashes into his back and Waddle Dee rubs his face in pain. Kirby must be built tough. They're surprised to see her display an evil face and a fight breaks out. Kirby versus Adeleine once again. It's been a while since last time when she went by just Ado during Kirby's 3rd big adventure in Dreamland, but here we are. She first sends an NZ at him, then a Bronto Burt, followed by a terrifying Mario, and then a Mumby, followed by a pixelated monstrosity. No one knows what this pixelated thing is. Maybe it's dubious food like Legend of Zelda sensors. It's bad food? Or maybe it's a bug? Since it's pulsing and ball-shaped, I wonder if it's a Mumby without bandages? Either way, everything is easily defeated by Kirby's lightning rod. Then she gets extra mad and starts summoning her strongest painting, Ice Dragon. Kirby's impressed as the Ice Dragon looks visually improved from last time, but Kirby beats that too. Then she gets extra mad and remembers a being even more powerful she can paint and paints a Dark Matter. But yet again, Kirby's lightning rod is too strong, and boom, down goes the painting as well. With that, Adeleine's all out of options, but she's not out of hands. Adeleine rushes Kirby because her hands are rated E for everyone, but just like Waddle Dee, when she crashes into him, she's knocked back and the Dark Matter flies out of her along with the Crystal Shard. Ribbon checks on Adeleine while Kirby and Waddle Dee do a triple five. Adeleine says she wants to join, and the trio happily let her join them, and she runs ahead. And of course, she joins the picnic. Interesting fact, this level has all 7 copy abilities, so Kirby can always come back here for any specific powers he needs for later. And I wish I realized that sooner, because I had to do a lot of going back to other stages to find the powers. I wish I knew this ahead of time. It would have made my life a lot easier. So the level select is a map that the kids have, and they put it on like a stump usually. That's what's happening here, I'm showing it. They look at a map on a tree stump, and Ribbon says she senses crystal shards coming from the nearby castle. It's Castle Dedede! Kirby rushes off, and the others follow. Kirby then first encounters Scud the missile. Their name is Misaru in the Japanese version, by the way. Scud is a type of missile. It's just a little missile with a evil face on it. That's really what it is. This is another enemy Kirby will not encounter after this adventure. This is so peculiar, but Kirby is getting used to the surprises a bit. Kirby decides to eat them and gets the bomb ability, then eats another of them for Bomb Bomb, which gives Kirby the ability to launch 3 missiles from his mouth. Kirby tests out these seeking missiles on everything in his path, and it is devastating. Bronto Burt, Bobo, Sir Kibble, Bounty T, no one stands a chance. Kirby then encounters a Ghost Knight, which is literally a ghost with a shield and lance. Maybe they're an old resident of the castle, Kirby wonders? This would be Kirby's only encounter with them, but they are referenced again in Star Allies with a mural with some other characters. Kirby blasts his way through King Dedede's castle and dodges Bronto Burt's on a moving platform. Kirby thinks King Dedede's castle goes through so many renovations. Kirby climbs the ramparts and finds a hidden Maxim tomato. It's probably one of King Dedede's, Kirby thinks, and giggles and munches on it. A little rascal is Kirby. Kirby walks across the top of the drawbridge he came through earlier and finds a hidden sandwich. Kirby just keeps taking all of King Dedede's snacks. Kirby then falls and finds a green platform with a crystal shard under it. Kirby tries to get through it, but nothing. Then tries to blow it up, nothing again. Kirby then realizes that Cutter gives off a green feeling, and he remembered seeing Sir Kibble earlier, so he goes up and gets the copy ability from them. Kirby goes for Double Cutter to be safe, and success! Kirby grabs the crystal shard. Kirby then gets a 1-up from Adeleine. How nice! Kirby then immediately finds another crystal shard as he climbs many stairs. Along the way, Kirby gains Bear Trap again and climbs some chains and feels static. What is it? It's Bivolt, a being of pure static electricity. Kirby quickly climbs up to get away from them. They are invincible, and fortunately, Bivolt only shows up in Kirby 64. They're just a smiling ball of electric energy that only shows up on chains Kirby can climb on, so they're kind of annoying. As Kirby climbs the chains, King Dedede is looking out from his castle. Sensing a Maxim tomato and sandwich are missing from his castle. He then sees a crystal shard and grabs it as Kirby jumps towards it. He smirks at Kirby because it's his now. Kirby tries to get the crystal shard, but to no avail. King Dedede won't give it to him. Then Dark Rimuro interrupts them and possesses King Dedede. Not again, King Dedede cries as he feels his senses fade. This possessed King Dedede starts attacking Kirby like he did in Kirby's second adventure in Dreamland. But it's old hat for Kirby and he easily dispatches King Dedede with a bear trap. I guess it's a King Dedede trap now. The crystal shard falls and the dark matter is beaten out of him. Annoyed that Kirby saves him again, King Dedede looks away as Kirby runs off to continue his adventure. Waddle Dee asks if King Dedede will help, but he refuses. Waddle Dee then rushes off to follow Kirby before he loses track of him. He looks toward his king one last time before jumping from the castle. King Dedede then shakes angrily with himself and rushes off to help Kirby and friends. Apparently when Star Allies was out, there was an official Nintendo news for the game, and in it Adeleine says she sees King Dedede as a big brother, which I guess is why so much fan art shows them teaming up and having a familial bond. So King Dedede joins the party and the team is complete. He joins them for a picnic. Waddle Dee enjoys an onigiri, Adeleine has a sandwich, and King Dedede double fist meat. With the party complete, Ribbon only senses 1 shard left on Popstar, and they rush over to find its Wispy Woods with his Wispy Wood Juniors. Kirby first fights off the Juniors as Wispy shoots apples and wind bullets at Kirby. For some reason, these two always fight. Ribbon doesn't understand why, but the moment they were in range of each other, they fought. To make it a fair fight, Kirby throws away the bear trap and shoots apples at Wispy Woods Juniors. After defeating the Juniors, Wispy angrily attacks with his roots, and Kirby holds in apples to attack these roots whenever they come up. Eventually, Kirby defeats Wispy Woods and yanks the shard away from him. With all the shards on Popstar gathered, they come together and make a bigger crystal. It then transforms into a star portal showing a planet holding other shards. Kirby's in awe of the portal, but Ribbon has no time and she rushes into the portal. The other 4 look at each other and nod and run to the portal too. Kirby first, then Waddle Dee, then Adeleine, and lastly King Dedede. The portal then turns back into a crystal and it flies to the next destination. The party finds themselves at Rockstar. It looks like it was once a solid rock planet that burst into pieces. It looks very shaky. They first find themselves in a desert full of cacti. Kirby approaches one and finds it's alive. Kirby gets surprised and sucks it up and eventually gets needled to become Swiss Army Knife Kirby. This power feels really weird for Kirby. He spreads out so far and becomes so many things. Regular Needle makes him a ball of spikes, but this, it kinda reminds him of Nova. Kirby sprouts out a cactus, a fork, a wasp stinger, a sword, a measuring claw, a surgical needle, a corkscrew, and a sharpened pencil. Kirby finds himself getting stuck to many things, but he also is very hard to fight because of it. Kirby jumps and spreads at enemies as he treks across the desert. By the way, this is the only game with Cacti, the cactus. It's just a happy-looking green cactus that attacks Kirby. It's a silly-looking thing. Before entering a building in the desert, Kirby encounters Kaboo. At least that's what Kirby thought, but it was Sandman, a creature like Kaboo, but made of sand and stretches out. It bothers Kirby that they look like Kaboo, but they aren't Kaboo. Kirby blows through them and moves on. This was the only game with Sandman until Kirby Air Riders. Inside the building that looks like a giant Kaboo, or maybe Sandman, Kirby encounters a new tough enemy called Eye Cubed. It's a stone with an eye that falls at Kirby. They act like a thwomp. They're just a rock that waits for Kirby to come under and then fall at them. That's really it. They really freak out Kirby since they're big rocks with big unblinking eyes. So he flies over them and finds a crystal shard. How lucky! Kirby unfortunately still only encounters these eyes here, but we'll see a painting of them in Star Allies like Ghost Knight. Their Japanese name is Donin, which is onomatopoeia for thud in Japanese. Eventually, Kirby decides to get the rock ability from two cairns. He becomes a giant walking golem Kirby that can roll. He's not stronger than Eye Cubed, unfortunately, but Kirby's still pretty tough. Kirby fights a giant cacti with this ability, and it goes fairly well. Kirby ends up having to try to survive in a room as the sand rises. He has to avoid some obstacles like platforms, Punked, and Gordo, but eventually Kirby climbs out. After climbing out, Kirby finds a brown and yellow wall, and Ribbon senses a crystal shard behind it. Later, Kirby returns with Electric Stone, which gives Kirby the ability to control rocks with electricity to get the crystal. After this, Kirby runs into a long-time enemy, Scarfy, the cute but explosively angry at times flying pighead thing. Kirby's had to deal with him since his first big adventure in Dreamland. Kirby then finds an oasis with a single fish called Flopper in it. The fish is pretty sad and useless, so Kirby puts them out of their misery. This adventure is the only time Kirby will encounter this weak fish as well. Kirby then gets electric ability and has to avoid goblins from the background trying to eat him in the foreground. They're like crocodile cactus creatures trying to eat Kirby. This is Kirby's first and only encounter with them, like many others. Their Japanese name is Gabuten, another portmanteau combining two onomatopoeias, this time Gabu Gabu and Sabuten, which are gulping and cactus, respectively. That's funny because, Sabaton, the band, is similar in name, but they don't mean cactus. With electric, Kirby's able to summon a powerful static electricity around him. Area 2-2 is more like a Roman ruins, it seems. Kirby rushes through and eventually runs into an axe with legs. Scary! Its name is Hack in the US version and Seki in the Japanese version. Hack is hacking something, which is cutting with a blunt object. Seki is a stone portion of the wood stone tool. This is the only game Kirby runs into this thing. It's really weird. Kirby then avoids falling pillars and pulls together Rock and Needle for the drill ability. The drill drags Kirby forward, but doesn't help with the falling pillars. Then Kirby runs into Ruff, the big boar. They remember Kirby last time they fought him, which was in the third big adventure in Dreamland, and they go after him, but Kirby drills into them easily. After falling pillars, Kirby encounters falling Rockies, and they look really weird here, and only here in this adventure. They don't have their trademark Hachimaki. It's very troubling to Kirby. Eventually, Kirby finds the first crystal shard under a ruin, while avoiding Mumbies and Ghost Knights. It's quite harrowing. Then he climbs into a ruined building and finds a floating crystal shard, while avoiding and failing to suck up ghostly creatures named No. Kirby eventually gives up, finds a yummy Mexican tomato, and moves on. He then has to trudge through a deadly trap area while raising pillars trying to crush him. Then he runs into Kapar, the Kappa, trying to cut him up. But Kirby easily deals with them like he did in his third big adventure in Dreamland. This will be the last time Kirby sees Kapar until Kirby's Air Riders. Kapars are like little duck guys that also are Kappas, but they look like little ducks more than Kappas in this game. Outside, Kirby grabs fire and electric to gain the static burn ability. Kirby accidentally lights himself on fire and he runs through the ruins while on fire and dodging shots of fire. It's quite the spectacle. Also, Kirby ran into Propeller, the flying bomb enemy, during this. He last saw them where he last saw Kapar. Then Kirby tires from all this running around, but luckily King Dedede shows up and piggybacks Kirby while he hammers his way through a lot of stone walls and climbs cables and stone stairs and crushes fire galbos, and eventually they find the third crystal shard. The fire galbos were first encountered in Kirby's Dreamland 3 and will be encountered next in Return to Dreamland. They also run into Turbite in there, which is a weird bug with claws. Their name is a combination of turbine and bite. they're never ever seen again after this adventure. After all that, they enjoy a picnic and Kirby finds the next area with Ribbon. 2, 3, an underground sand area that is quite cavernous. Kirby immediately runs into a new enemy. It's a flying skull named Bonehead. Well, that's the name? Kirby thinks kill it with fire and does so with Fire Phoenix Dash he got from eating 2 Galabos. He only encounters them in this game. Their Japanese name is Shadabado, which is a combination of skull and bird in Japanese. Kirby also encounters spooky black balls with eyes named Bo. They mind their own business, but they scare Kirby, so he kills them with fire too. They're interesting because they're kind of nothing. If Kirby sucks up one and holds it over them, they'll vanish. Very interesting. They never show up again after this game. My understanding is they are bows that aren't on fire. They would be Bobos if they were. But we killed it with fire, so it's confusing. Kirby then sees a crystal shard in the skeleton of a large beast, and sees a part that can be broken with stone. He comes back later to free the crystal. After that, he encounters Gabon throwing bones at him, and he takes their mask to humiliate them. Gabon is a little guy with a skull mask that throws bones at Kirby. He first fought them in Dreamland 3 and will again in Robobot. By the way, I forgot to mention that Kirby can hold enemies over his head if he sucks them up. Some will do stuff like Galbo will breathe fire, and No of course vanishes. If he holds a bonefish over his head, they'll shoot their heads out. It's very interesting which enemies can do things. Kirby then falls through more sand and ends up fighting a school of flying fish called Fishbone. They're called Tail in Japanese. I really don't get why that's their name in Japanese. They throw their head at Kirby, but he just burns them up to deal with them. Another one and done enemy that's only in this game. Kirby then falls further and finds the second crystal shard and then moves forward, burning forward with the Fire ability. Kirby then finds a chili and an Adeleine enemy named Snipper because it tries to snip Kirby with its big scissor-like mouth. The Japanese name it Jibasami, which is a combination of Earth G and Hasami scissors, pincers. Kirby does a good job avoiding them. Kirby will eventually encounter these things again in Tilt and Tumble. Kirby at first uses one ice to freeze enemies and then goes Ice for a big snowball ability. Kirby bowls over a bunch of enemies this way. Kirby avoids more snippers and bowls over Mariels as well. Mariel is a rare spider enemy that Kirby only encountered during his third big adventure in Dreamland and here. Thankfully no more Mariels after this. Mariels are just, they're creepy looking spiders, the best way to put it. Kirby then, to his surprise, has to swim underground and try not to get cut up by bonefish. Thankfully the snowball ability makes them tough to hurt him. Kirby then has to avoid a bunch of falling bones in the water. But thanks to his deft swimming, he gets by them and collects the third crystal shard. Kirby next travels to 2-4 and sees a giant black pyramid and heads there. As he runs, he sees Keke in the background. Keke is a cute girl who floats on a broomstick and minds her own business for the most part. Kirby will never see her again after this adventure for some reason. In the Black Pyramid, Kirby first avoids a bunch of Shotso gunfire while on an elevator. Then he has to climb over red and yellow platforms, floating back and forth, and finds the first crystal shard, while avoiding attacks from a new enemy named Spark Eye. They protect themselves under armor and shoot blasts at Kirby. Another one and done enemy, their Japanese name is Rami, a reference to Ramil, the fifth angel from Evangelion. Quite the reference there. Kirby finds Adeleine trying to look at something in the dark. Kirby realizes he'll need a bright power and comes back as Lightbulb Kirby with a mix of electric and bomb. He sees the symbols Fish, Cloud, and Moon. In the next room, he finds these symbols and pushes them down. This reveals the second crystal shard for Kirby to grab. After that, Kirby has to go through a bunch of flying square platforming while avoiding attacks from Spark Eye and other enemies. He then faces against a giant Spark Eye and easily does away with it and collects the third crystal shard. Then he climbs to the top of the pyramid while avoiding B-vaults, and they're done. At the top of the pyramid, Kirby faces a technological marvel named Pix that uses red, green, and blue crystals to attack Kirby. Pix, of course, is short for pixel. They attack by rotating and trying to slice Kirby with energy extensions, and later try to drop energy attacks at Kirby. At first, Kirby tries to use double electric to fry them, but it doesn't work. They're projections, and Kirby realizes he has to use their own energy against them and does so with energy signatures they leave behind as they attack Kirby. If he hits the colored crystals with the same color energy, he does extra damage to them. After lots of fighting, Kirby overloads the crystals and they explode as one. Kirby collects the last crystal, and the party then wanders through the desert for a while. Kirby gets really hungry and hallucinates the party as food. Adeleine is an apple, Ribbon is a strawberry, King Dedede is a strawberry shortcake, and Waddle Dee is a big piece of meat. Kirby realizes they aren't food and falls to the ground. Thankfully, with the power of Adeleine's paint ability, she makes them all food, and they're the things Kirby saw and wanted. Kirby enjoys an apple and a keiki, while King Dedede eats meat and Waddle Dee enjoys a strawberry. Adeleine enjoys a BLT without the B. He paints one more apple, and then the bigger combined crystal activates and gives them a new portal to jump through. This time it's a water planet. Everyone jumps through except Kirby because he was really enjoying his keiki. King Dedede grabs him and off they go. Aquastar is the third planet they adventure on to find crystal shards. The party put their plans on a lily pad on the water. Well, I guess they're all standing waist deep in the water? They figure, well, they'll go first and run off to 3-1, which is a tropical island. Upon first arriving there, Kirby runs into Pompeii, the little volcano man. He gives Kirby the rock ability. Kirby's surprised by how many new creatures he keeps running into. He'll never run into Pompeii again after this adventure, though. Pompeii is the name of a place that was destroyed by the Mount Vesuvius eruption hundreds of years ago. Kirby continues forward and finds familiar enemies like Bronto Bird and Flopper. These guys get around. After some island holes, Kirby finds a Bobo and combines rock with fire to become Volcano Kirby. The power of the volcano gives Kirby a hothead and he blasts volcanic rocks at everyone. Kirby then combines Pompeii with Kapar for Cutterstone, which gives him the sculpture ability, and he becomes some of his old friends like Pitch, Rick, Koo, Kine. Actually, all of them. Choo Choo and Nago. He can become all of them. Kirby then bounces around some sea caves with the help of Zebon, and with Cha-Cha dancing in the background enjoying themselves. Kirby ran into Zebon back in Dreamland 3, while this is Cha-Cha's only game. Zebon's just a green thing with a smiley face. It's also in the anime. Cha-Cha is like this just little person with maracas, and they just cheer in the background and in the foreground sometimes. Kirby enjoys the sound of the maracas Cha-Cha is playing with. Zebon acts as a cannon to blast Kirby around. With the help of Zebon, Kirby blasts through a lot of enemies and finds the first crystal shard. Deeper in the cave, Kirby finds a penguin named Emp, which is likely short for Emperor. They run away from Kirby, but to no avail. Kirby sucks them up for the ice ability and combines it with Karen for Ice Rock to turn Kirby into a curling stone. So I guess Kirby's been to Canada, or Adeleine told Kirby about curling, something like that. Emp is a rare type of enemy that runs from Kirby. Most creatures aren't smart enough to run from Kirby, so good on them for being that smart. Their Japanese name is a deep cut into Japanese culture. They're called Hayama, which is a reference to a Japanese singer named Pege Hayama, who was once mistakenly called Penguin Hayama. That is a deep cut, oh my god. With Curling Stone ability, Kirby makes short work of most enemies until he runs into a frog named Glom who gobbles up Kirby very easily. They then spit Kirby out, which hurts him, and then they hide back into their hole with their eyes only showing in the shadows, waiting to gobble up Kirby again. Glom's Japanese name is Hiroger. This is a mix of Pedo and Frogger. Pedo is the sound effect for licking in Japanese. I don't know why that's what the sound effect is, and you know, frog is frog. By the way, the end credits artwork will reveal the creature is more like an eel frog. It's not cool looking at that thing. Ugh. Kirby does well to avoid other gloms and freezes up a crab named Connie and Papa Rose Jr., then running into a hunter named Yariko. Yariko looks to be the female half of the Yabans who attacked Kirby back in his third adventure in Dreamland. They must want revenge, Kirby thinks as they hurl a spear at him, but he handles them well enough. The name is very literal. Yari means spear and Ko means child, but Ko is usually used for feminine things in general. Speaking of Dreamland 3, Connie the crab was in that game too. Connie also shows up in the anime Kirby Right Back at Ya, and they torment Kirby in that one. After curling through some waterfalls and freezing more enemies, Kirby happens upon an interesting creature. A near-translucent fish called Squibby. Kirby freezes them before they can be a problem. The Japanese name is Olisian, which is an anagram for Cleons, which are called Sea Angels. They are more similar to how this enemy moves. Kirby only sees them in this game. Kirby then finds himself fighting a giant and some smaller ticks. One tick surprise attacks Kirby up his keister, and Kirby crushes them all with the Curling Stone ability, and the second crystal shard appears. Kirby first ran into Tick in Dreamland 3, and they will return again in the future. They give Needle. Kirby returns later with the Ice Bomb ability, which makes Kirby an exploding snowman. Kirby's pretty hurt, but luckily gets a Maximum Tomato from Adeleine. Kirby then finds the third crystal shard under a platform that needs Ice Bomb ability to get, and then runs into some lightning kid named Zeus. Spelled Z-O-O-S. What a name. It's a lightning kid in a cloud, but they don't give Kirby much trouble since he can fly. The name in Japanese is Pachi, which is onomatopoeia for crackling. They of course give electricity. After that, Kirby finishes up the level. Now off to 3-2, which is more Riverlands. Kirby grabs the Papa Rose Jr. and bombs his way through for a while, then combining with Karen for Bomb Rock to make dynamite. Kirby hides under a hard hat to protect him from the dynamite that will hurt him if he doesn't hide under it. Kirby then runs through a cave and tries not to fall to his death while running on a crumbling bridge. Unfortunately, the dynamite proves too dangerous and Kirby knocks himself out, waking up outside the cave and trying again. This time Kirby goes ice and snowballs through the rivers, then ending up fighting a giant Connie and regular Connies. He sees a red and brown rock blocking a crystal shard. Kirby comes back later with volcano ability to get that one. Kirby then finds Waddle Dee with a raft at the top of a riverway. Together they ride down the river and have a fun but harrowing time. They jump over Connies and obstacles while collecting food, stars, and a crystal shard. They even go down some waterfalls. Eventually the fun ends when they come upon a high waterfall. They lose their raft and Kirby flings Waddle Dee to safety. Kirby then lands on an invincibility candy, and he eats it, and with the power of a sugar rush, Kirby bounces off the ground and rushes down the rest of the river with no problem, even using the snowball ability to run over some enemies. This is the only game where the invincibility candy song is different for some reason. It's a fine song for the candy, but feels weird not being the usual song. Eventually, Kirby finds the third crystal shard under one of the waterfalls and snowballs his way to the bottom. But it's not over. Kirby has a bit more to go, and he has to climb up a riverway avoiding spike logs. He gathers the Fire ability to climb upwards, and it does help. Kirby unfortunately gets run over a couple times by the logs, but eventually gets to the end. Kirby then heads to the beaches in 3-3, and he runs over sand hills and sand valleys and past many enemies he's already faced. Kirby then enters the sandcastle area and then goes out at the end of it, and it's believed that this sandcastle area must have been meant for something here, likely a sub-boss fight, but it was cut from the final version. It's a weird stage break. The official Japanese website says Waddle and King Dedede made the sandcastle and the sand elephant slide. Kirby then avoids Shatso cannon fire as he makes his way to the stone and coral island. There he finds a crystal shard hidden in a pillar. That needs Cutter Bomb to get to it. Kirby then deals with a water bridge trying to push him into Gordo's. Fortunately, the boy's too fast. He then gets launched to the next island with King Dedede's help. Kirby then has to platform along a bunch of wooden pillars while avoiding attacks from Bonefish. He then goes into a cave and fights a giant Kapar who is no match for Sculpture Kirby, and he sees the second crystal shard. Then he finds the third crystal shard behind a green and brown wall. At first, Kirby has trouble flying up to the third shard, but he finds he can climb up there as Rick, since Rick can grab onto walls to jump higher. The next portion of the stage has tilting platforms with wooden logs that keep rolling over Kirby. After that, Kirby makes his way to Area 3-4. This area is underwater and Kirby has to dodge squiggies and underwater missiles, unfortunately called Pedo, which is short for torpedo, of course, just The Japanese name is Gyokun. Gyora is the word for torpedo in Japanese. They give the bomb ability. Kirby will only encounter them in this game. The next area is pretty cool with underwater vents and corals. Kirby has to dodge a lot of pedos, falling rocks, squiggies, and a new fish named Blowfish. Their Japanese name is Gyodon, Gyo for fish and Don for boom. Kirby only encounters them here too. They're like a blowfish, they get expanded and they explode. That's all they do. In the third area, Kirby has to contend with water jets and try to avoid glunks, gordos, blowfish, and turbites. Kirby takes a turbite to get electricity, and fills the surrounding area himself with electricity to deal with enemies. Kirby then fights through the water jets to grab the first crystal shard, which is in the ceiling. Next, Kirby has to avoid enemies in a tighter water-streamed cave. Electricity makes it very easy. Kirby then finds a pole and holds onto it to help him get to the second crystal shard. After that, he faces off against a giant blowfish while using the bomb ability to fight them off. Winning this fight reveals the way out. Kirby then has to go through an even bigger waterway with stronger jets and avoid rocks gushing at him. It doesn't go well and he gets hit a lot, but eventually Kirby gets good at dodging and finds the third crystal shard and gets out of there. Kirby then finds last crystal shard being guarded underwater by Acro the Orca. They're back! It looks like Aquastar is where they went after being defeated in the Ripple Field back in Kirby's third big adventure in Dreamland. Their fight is similar to last time, but this time Kirby has the exploding shurikens and they make quick work of Acro, until he forces Kirby to swim upward as he launches pedos at Kirby. Eventually Acro knocks the power out of Kirby, and Kirby resorts to using explosives to finish Acro off and collect the last crystal shard of Aquastar. Kirby happily swims and cheers to the camera and says hi. The party then enjoys throwing rocks at the waves at the beach. Kirby joins in, but closes his eyes as he winds up. Everyone sees a big wave and runs away, but Kirby doesn't see it. He throws a rock into the big wave and gets swept up. Kirby then floats back to the beach and sees everyone jump into the next star portal. Kirby hurries up and jumps into it too. Something funny, I know I've seen people edit where this happens to Kirby and then he washes up on the Forgotten Land, which is a fun thing to do. With a 24-year difference, jeez, or 22-year difference actually. The fourth star they travel to is Neostar. Neostar appears to be a more primitive planet. Kirby first heads into prehistoric-looking jungle 4-1 and encounters Yariko and Hack, and eventually Petarans in the second area. Petarans are, well, I'm saying this weird just to emphasize the P. They're pterodactyls, so they're pterodons? Pararans? Why is there a P in there? So anyway, they're pterodactyl-looking enemies. Kirby only runs into them here in Dreamland 3, so the first area is a lot of jungle with spike pitfall traps for Kirby to fall into. Kirby finds the first crystal shard in a pit that they forgot to put spikes in, so that's good. The second area is a vertical area Kirby needs to climb while avoiding Petarans. But Kirby first goes downwards, because that's the rule of games, and he finds the second crystal shard. After lots of difficult climbing, Kirby gets into a vine hopping section that is a bit difficult, but Kirby swings on through as quick as he can. In the 4th area, he fights a big Galbo and dodges Yariko spears. Then Kirby platforms onto logs hanging from vines, and it's very cool visually. Kirby almost misses the 3rd crystal shard high up in the vines, like it's a little hidden, but he gets it. Kirby then finds an invincibility candy and easily rampages through the new flower creature called Flora. Kirby's kinda mean for flying through them since they're just weak smiling flowers minding their own business. They do damage because you crash into them, but that is what they are. By the way, you can hold Flora and bump her over Kirby's head and he'll float down with them like a parachute, so that's cool. And really, Flora's just a flower, that's it. It's a floating flower parachute looking thing. The 2nd area is a big deep underground cave that Kirby falls through. He finds the 1st crystal shard while he's falling. He then lands in a minecart Waddle Dee found. Waddle Dee shows his strength by pushing the cart and Kirby and then hopping in once they get momentum. Kirby can't be light, there's no way. They have a fun time running over enemies and hopping over obstacles and hopping over pitfalls. They find the 2nd crystal shard while on this rail. They eventually get to the end of the rail and knocks over the cart and Kirby and Waddle Dee fall off into a pit. Kirby lands on his head, but because he's a rubbery ball boy, he bounces off it fine. We can assume Waddle Dee landed somewhere fine as well. In this deep subterranean area, Kirby pushes forward and has to avoid many enemies. Kirby sees the glums and decides to go Fire Cutter to get the fire sword to help him. But it's to no avail since there's so many invincible enemies here like the glums and the eye cubes. But eventually Kirby finds enemies he can deal with like Connie and Bumber. The next area proves quite dangerous with treacherous water flows and the Shatsu shooting everywhere and a new water slime enemy named Drop. They give Kirby a bunch of trouble. This is the only place Kirby encounters Drop, by the way. In the next area, Kirby zoos and Kapar to get Lightning Cutter, which gives him the dual lightsabers. Kirby then finds a brown and black wall to break. Kirby returns with Dynamite to break the wall for the 3rd crystal shard. Kirby then has to fight an army of drops with his duel with the Fates Blade, but it's not over. He then has to survive through crushing rock pillars, but he gets through fairly well to picnic time. In level 4-3, Kirby runs across a rock bridge in the sky. He sucks up a propeller and to his surprise they give him the Ice ability and he combines with Punk for Needle to get the Snowflake Kirby ability. He feels himself become cold and big and pokey to turn into a giant sharp snowflake. Kirby climbs the bridge and deals with lots of new familiar enemies like Cairn, Rocky, and others. Kirby finds an orange stone and destroys it to get the 1st shard. Interestingly, this is one of the few obstacles that doesn't need a combination to open. Kirby climbs further and has to deal with Pompei's, Bumbers, Gabon, and others. Eventually becomes a series of pillars Kirby has to hop from, one to the next. Also dealing with Petarans trying to knock him down. In the 3rd area, Kirby finds Adeleine studying her painting of an umbrella, which motivates Kirby to break a series of star blocks to make an umbrella, which reveals the 2nd crystal shard. Nice clue from Adeleine. By the way, it's a real annoying thing to make it, because if you are off by even one block, you have to go back and do it again. It took me a couple tries because I kept accidentally hitting blocks. After the umbrella, Kirby encounters a new enemy, Mahal. They're like a Cappy, but they're hiding in a hole with a green lid. The name is a play on manhole. Kirby looks at them curiously and then easily dispatches with them. Kirby will forget about them since this is the only adventure he'll meet them. This area also has lots of falling platforms to give Kirby some trouble, except Kirby can fly, so not much trouble. Eventually Kirby slips off a ledge and finds the last shard. Then he finds a mysterious pillar that spells Kirby. Kirby would be really curious about this if he could read. How did these lettered pillars happen? Maybe Waddle Dee worked ahead and chiseled these, we'll never know. Kirby next goes towards the volcanoes of the planet in level 4-4. There, Kirby has to dodge many falling rocks from the skies. The falling rocks get an info card and they're called Ignis. He then climbs into a cave and uses Bobo's fire to fire dash through. As he flies, he encounters a round creature that jumps out of the lava named Magoo and flies under flying birds called Burnus. Kirby dealt Magoo in his 3rd big adventure in Dreamland and never again after this. Burnus is Kirby 64 only. Its name is Burnus, while the ice bird that will show up later is called Frigus. Though they both have the same model and suffix, how fun! They have a strip in one of the manga where the 2 birds meet and hug and both die since they're opposite elements. It's hilarious and dark, oh my god. Kirby then runs into King Dedede who piggybacks him through more of the volcano. The reason Kirby needs King Dedede is so he can destroy pillars in Kirby's way. They also encounter floating bows and Bronto birds. King Dedede makes sure to hammer all of them. King Dedede also finds a shard in a pillar. King Dedede also demonstrates his great platforming ability with jumping on small pillars mostly covered in lava. That's a really tough section if you don't know how to platform well. Kirby then fire swords his way through an area with a narrow bridge over lava, eventually dodging Bronto birds attacking from background in the foreground and jumping over and under lava fountains. It's very harrowing. Kirby then finds a black and red mound of dirt that he sees a crystal shard in. Kirby returns later with ice and needle to break it open. Now I find this very confusing, right? I just said black and red. What is it about this area that tells you need ice needle? Nothing really. Chacha's in the back room with red, yellow, and blue maracas. There's Bobos who are red and blue. I guess you just have to get lucky and decide to bring in ice power because all you need is ice to break this one open. But it was red and black. So I thought it was, well, fire and bomb, but it wasn't. It was very confusing. Kirby then has to run from a giant lava wave while avoiding boneheads and other problems. Curiously, Kirby runs over an area that looks like a skull in the lava. After getting away from the wave, things get worse as the lava rises from below and Kirby has to climb up and out of the volcano, while also finding the third crystal shard during this. At the top, they escape the lava and have a picnic. Kirby then faces off against Magman. It's literally a giant magma creature with a face. They send their tentacles out to attack Kirby, which he dodges and attacks with Snowflake to easily defeat the first form. After suffering enough pain, the Magman comes down to Kirby himself and chases Kirby to another area, and Kirby just stands there with Snowflake. Magman tries to fight Kirby, but the giant Snowflake is too much for him and Kirby easily wins. Up on some pillars, the party stare at the crystal and wait for it to open up for a star portal. But before it does that, a volcano goes off and they have to run from the eruption. Ribbon and King Dedede jump in first when the portal opens, but the others are a bit slower. King Dedede grabs Adeleine's hand and pulls her in. Kirby hops in, but Waddle Dee can't keep up. So Kirby uses his vacuum ability to pull Waddle Dee into the portal and off they go. I false remember this cutscene until seeing it again here. I still remember King Dedede grabbing Waddle Dee, not Adeleine, but here it is. So now they arrive at Shiver Star, and unlike the other planets, this one has a moon, and it's covered in snow. Adeleine makes a sad look at the planet. That's because of the big secret here. If you zoom in and look at Shiver Star, you'll see the continents on the planet, and those continents are ours! Looks like humanity's left Earth in the Kirby universe. I do believe this is the first big dark surprise for the Kirby fandom. This is kind of the start of the vague dark lore of Kirby, and we learn more details as the party explores Shiver Star. Quick on the fly correction, I think Dark Matter Swordsman might be the first dark lore, because if you read other things, you learn that Dark Matter Swordsman was just jealous of people having friends on Popstar, and that's why he attacked. So you just kill a lonely person who's attacking out of, well, hurt. So that's sad. The party finds a pile of tires and puts down their plan and heads off to 5-1. Kirby starts out in the snow and it looks pretty nice. Big pretty purple flowers and familiar enemies besides Frigus, the ice equivalent of Burnus, who Kirby encountered in the last planet. Kirby then gets Needle from Punk and Bomb from Poppy Bros Jr. to become a Gordo? Kirby feels weird to become his mortal enemy, but it's also a little fun being something so powerful. He finds he's able to move in 8 directions. It's pretty great. After lots of tormenting everyone as a Gordo, Kirby climbs up a mountain with ladders to get away from the Petarans. It's a long climb, Snake Eater long. Also, wow, there's a lot of Petarans here. Kirby then runs into Waddle Dee with a sled and they enjoy a slide down the snow hill. It is a bit dangerous jumping over logs, but they run over lots and lots of enemies, especially chilies, eventually hopping onto an igloo to get the first crystal shard. Eventually they comically crash into a big rock and fall face first into the snow. Silly boys, I wish we got more of that. We kinda do with the other crashes, but this is just visually hilarious. Kirby then fights a giant chili and Frigus raining down cold death, but Kirby still has Gordo, so it goes fairly easily. Kirby sees a crystal in the ceiling encased in ice. Gordo, though powerful, cannot open it. Kirby comes back later with Phoenix Fighter to melt the ice. In the next area, Kirby swims in the icy cold and finds he can vacuum while underwater. Only this game allows that, no other game. Eventually the underwater swimming pays off when Kirby finds a hole in the pillars in the cold water and eventually finds a crystal shard. Well, there he encountered some slushy squids who he only encounters here. They're just like pedally squids and don't really pose a risk. In case it wasn't clear, the slushy is the name of the squids. Their Japanese name is Papa! I don't know why. I do not know why it's called Papa. That's not a thing. I don't get it. Before finishing the level, Kirby also encounters a lizard with a rock named Putt. I guess because they put a rock at Kirby? Kirby never sees them again, but then Kirby runs into Ma, an ant-lion-like creature in the ice that tries to go up and chomp Kirby. So Kirby has threats from above with Putt, and below with Ma. Ma resembles Pacto, but he's not Pacto. They'll show up again in Star Allies as a mural thing, but that's it. Never again will Kirby run into these things. In level 5-2, Kirby climbs up a weird cupcake ice hill and a Zebon launches him into the clouds. These clouds are covered in crystals and stars. Kirby grabs Bomb Bomb to missile everything in his way because there's a lot of Petarans, along with Browno Burts. Kirby then finds the first crystal shard under the clouds. He then rides some updrafts as he travels along the clouds. Kirby then heads into a giant cumulus cloud with Zebon in there, and it launches him into other Zebons and Browno Burts and Scarfies. And the Zebons launch him into a crystal shard, and then even higher into the clouds. Kirby then finds himself between clouds and having to avoid falling Mapus. They were in Dreamland 3 and will return in Return to Dreamland. They're just happy, smiling snowballs that want to kill Kirby. After avoiding those, he ends up jumping over more Mapu, who jump up out of the lower clouds trying to hit and kill Kirby. Kirby also has to avoid Mob, but he also blows them up with the bomb. So again, threats from above and below. So much having to stay in the middle for Kirby. Kirby then ends up fighting a giant Mapu, and then a crystal shard appears in a yellow and orange box. Kirby returns with Needle Spark Lightning Rod to get it. Kirby then heads into a big building in the snow in level 5-3. It turns out to be a mall. Thinking on it, Kirby won't see another mall until Forgotten Land, which people think might be a human mall as well. Kirby climbs the escalators and deals with longtime enemies like Sir Kibble, Bouncy T, Papa Bros Jr., and Gordos. Also Putt rolling down rocks at Kirby. At the top of the escalators, Kirby finds the first crystal shard on the opposite end. He then enters an elevator, which takes him up to a more arboreal place in the mall. There he sees pretty trees and gets attacked by Mahals and a new enemy. Sentient saw blades named Sawyer. I love that name, by the way. Their Japanese name is Nokogiri, which just means saw blade. Kirby avoids them with care and will not see them again until Kirby Star Allies, when Viridia uses them as a paint attack. Kirby then takes another elevator up to a kids' play area. Kirby's tempted to play around, but he has a job to do. Also, there's Gloms here trying to gobble up Kirby, and he does not like that at all. Kirby then takes an elevator to a kid's jungle gym, and Kirby feels temptation again. But there's people and ticks trying to kill him here, so he doesn't want to stay too long. Fortunately, Kirby cuts the webs of the people to make them all fall into the ticks to make his life easier and safer. Kirby then dodges eye cubes and Gordos in the next room. Kirby isn't sure what the theme of this room is, besides suffering. Kirby then ends up in a shooting range dodging Shotzo cannonballs and bombs from Papa Bros Jr. Kirby rushes into the next room, which is a garden being guarded by a giant pupa and bows. Kirby eventually cuts them down and gets the second crystal shard. Kirby then sees Adeleine. She paints a cherry, a peach, and a melon. Kirby finds it curious and moves on. He then sees a series of colored buttons and hops on the red, pink, and green buttons. It's a good thing Kirby knows his fruit colors. With that, Kirby gets the third crystal shard and moves on. Kirby then dodges a bunch of Yariko spears and goblins as he rushes through a florist shop, then dodging falling dressers in an IKEA store. Okay, so this is a really old reference I'm making here, over 10 years, maybe 15 years. IKEA was selling a very popular dresser that would fall over and crush children. There was a big recall on everything, and so that's why I'm referencing there. Kirby then had to swim and dodge gloms, floppers, and Connie in a giant aquarium. This mall is huge! This is the biggest stage or the second biggest stage. Next, Kirby has to avoid Sawyers and Terbites in a hardware store. Kirby then has to survive propellers and bivolts in an electronics store and encounter a new enemy. Plug! They just look like a plug socket guy. That's literally it. Like, he's light blue, he's got yellow plug thingies, he's got black eyes, and he's got feet, and yeah, he's just literally that. He becomes an ally in Kirby Star Allies. People love Plug. I know people who love this guy. And this is where he started, in an electronics store. There you go. There you go. By the way, there's an interesting fact with his electronics store, which I'll mention in the interesting facts after all the game footage stuff, because it's a little bit of a thing. Oh, and also, Plug returns in Kirby Air Raptors. I forgot about that. So, Plug gives electricity, and Kirby finds them curious and combines electricity with propeller ice to become Refrigerator Kirby. Refrigerator Kirby's so good. Good timing because Kirby was feeling peckish. Kirby isn't sure how he makes food for free, but he's not complaining. He's just to keep gobbling it up. It's really good power to have because it can do damage, and you can heal yourself, so it's one of the best powers to break the game. Kirby then ends up in another play area with Shotzo cannons to dodge and uses crystal barriers to protect himself. Kirby then makes his way to another elevator, and he's done with the mall. That mall has the most enemies until the end of the game. There's one stage with more enemies, and is potentially the other stage is bigger or just as big as this stage. Level 5-4 is a big factory. Kirby jumps into an access tunnel outside and finds himself dealing with security. First in the form of Gordos blocking the ladder down. Kirby then has to avoid flying Rockin', which are like Pedo but not in the water. They're rockets that guard this area. Kirby avoids them while getting through some platforms. Like Pedo, he'll never see these guys again after this. I forgot to mention colors. Pedo's green and Rockin' is blue. Kirby then avoids Shotzos as he goes through more platforms, and he finds orange and brown boxes blocking his way to a shard. He returns later with a drill to remove these boxes for the shard. Kirby tried fireworks and dynamite first, thinking that maybe it was red and black or brown and black, before realizing it was orange and black. Kirby and King Dedede then run through a conveyor belt section and have to avoid squeaky hammer machines, which are these big metallic smiling machines that try to crush Kirby from background to foreground with a hammer on their head. Kirby won't see them again until Triple Deluxe. The machines are placed to crush whatever is in front of them, while they're trapped behind gates, but with King Dedede's strength, they destroy the gates to avoid the hammers. After avoiding many hammers, King Dedede's job is done and he throws Kirby into the next area, which is a lab area testing different subjects. The view here is really disturbing. While Kirby avoids more enemies on conveyor belts, he sees in the background a hippo, a giant frigus, a giggling black cat, and something that looks like a witch. While here, Kirby combines Sir Kibble's cutter with Turbite's electricity to regain the Duel of the Fates weapon, which he uses in the next room to fight a giant Burnus and freeze a caged crystal shard. Kirby then finds himself in a more disturbing factory area with crushers he has to avoid. Kirby doesn't want to be a Pollo Pancake. After much dodging, Kirby finds Plug and then has to run from big construction bulldozer robots from the sides while avoiding Sawyers. You're supposed to pronounce them Sawyers, which is weird because they're saws, but it's pronounced Sawyer because, Tom Sawyer, but it is what it is. Kirby has a lot of hazards coming at him. As Kirby runs away and moves up to the next area, Kirby sees food laid out to trap him, but Kirby keeps moving on until he sees a crystal shard in an area like that. Kirby rushes forward as fast as he can to get the crystal shard and avoid being crushed. It was very scary. If you are slow, you will get crushed there, it sucks. Kirby then almost gets sandwiched between two crushers, but survives with the luck of a metal pillar in the center blocking them. After all that, Kirby gets out of the factory. What a tough time that was. Kirby then faces off against HRH, a giant robot that has the last crystal shard here. The party isn't sure what this thing is, just that they need to fight it. HRH doesn't really have any lore. We know there's other HR machines in the future, but any guesses what the HR stands for is, well, a guess. Is this machine a guard, or was it sent to destroy Shiverstar's people, or what? We still don't know decades later, and probably never will since the Dark Matter Trilogy is referenced, but never really dived into any further after this game. HRH is a giant robot looming over Kirby. It has 4 rocket legs, 2 big lanky arms, and 1 big eye on its head. Its colors are mostly white with red, yellow, and black parts, and green sides. At first it tries to just swat Kirby like a fly, but after Kirby dodges that, it uses a laser eye. It later fires rockets at Kirby, which Kirby can shoot back. Kirby tries to undo the machine with drill ability. Kirby does fairly well, but gets the drill slapped out of him, and Kirby has to resort to star pellet attacks using the debris and rockets from the fight. Eventually, HRH becomes its second form, HRE, which is more like a rocket ship with pincers, and the green are now its eyes, and it chases Kirby along the highway they were fighting on. Kirby has to run away, hop over the pincers, and dodge rocket fire, eventually using the rockets to fight back. After dodging many rockets, the machine tries to crush Kirby and finds he's too small, so it goes back to rockets and pincers. Eventually, Kirby hits them with too many rockets, and they fall to the ground and stop moving. Another machine dead underneath Kirby's feet. The crystal shard pops out, and Kirby claims his prize with Ribbon. The crystal then becomes a star portal to Ripple Star, and Ribbon cries out when she sees her home planet covered in darkness. Everyone reaffirms their resolve to help Ribbon, and it reassures her. Kirby moves to go in first, but trips. Ribbon immediately wants to get down and lift Kirby up, but the momentum of the moment has others running toward them, resulting in everyone else hopping onto Kirby and then going into the portal. So they use him as a springboard. How hilariously mean. Ribbon then picks up Kirby's trampled body and carries him into the portal. The planet Ripple Star is an unnerving sight. It still has its cute smile, but it's covered in darkness, making it ominous. Kirby first lands in an area of Ripple Star that is reminiscent of green greens, but on a different planet. There's more rainbows and hearts and stuff. Seriously, I've played this game a couple times, I just realized 1-1 and 6-1 are the same layout and music, but different enemies and things decorating the stage. The crystal shard placements are the same too! Kirby grabs Needle from Cacti and Fire from Bobo to become Fire Archer. He fires fire arrows out of his mouth and shapes his body into a bow. Kirby now knows what fire tastes like. Well, he did for the fire sword, but still. He uses the arrows to pick off many enemies. Kirby gets his first crystal out in the open like he did in Popstar. Very curious. Kirby then goes into a building and instead of fighting a giant NZ, he fights a giant Sawyer that melts against his fire arrows, because, metal, and he grabs the second crystal shard. Kirby then finds the third crystal shard at a black and orange mound, so he comes back later with Bomb Needle for that. In level 6-2, Kirby wants to go to the palace, but it is covered in darkness, so Waddle finds a way in through some pipes outside. Kirby jumps in and dives to look for a way in. Of course, since this is a fairy planet, there's no ladders and there's heart decorations. Upon first diving, Kirby finds himself on a yellow platform and Ribbon senses a crystal. Kirby will return later with Electric to retrieve this crystal. Kirby swims up and down and deals with the usual aquatic enemies like bonefish, floppers, and more. But there's also parts out of the water, and Kirby has to deal with pupa and such. There's also a cave-in, which Kirby relies on King Dedede to knock down the dirt in the way for him to continue. Then there's this curious series of platforms with colored circles at each level. First is an orange circle, then yellow, then green, then blue. Kirby eventually finds a pair of colored holes for green and blue. Kirby wonders there's a pattern to this, then swims underwater and finds the second crystal shard, then swims to the other light blue circle and moves on. He then finds Adeleine, who gives him a Maxim tomato, and then he notices colored pillars with the colors he saw in the previous room, and he finds a crystal shard behind a green pillar. Kirby remembers running into Kapar earlier and grabs cutter ability from them. Kirby goes double cutter for fun and gets the third crystal shard. Kirby then goes up an elevator and discovers he's entered the palace. Kirby has a picnic with the others and then proceeds to 6-3. 6-3 is the palace itself, and it's the longest stage in the game. Also has the most enemies. Kirby will face 41 different enemies here. Kirby's running the gauntlet now. Kirby finds himself in some sort of warehouse and moves out. He then faces a Cha-Cha, Galbo, Gabon, Poppy Rose Jr., Chili, Pompey, and a Ghost Knight. When he reveals the first crystal shard, Kirby then climbs some stairs with the base of a tree in the daytime in the background. There's something I love about Kirby games is they'll do themes in the background, and this is one of them. Kirby also freezes some bumpers on his way up those stairs. He next finds himself trapped in the second room with enemies. This time he defeats Sparky, Mario, Sawyer, Connie, Punk, Yariko, Hawk, Bobo, Imp, and Ruff. Kirby gets Fire and Ice for the Steam ability. Kirby then climbs more stairs with the middle of a tree in the background and a rainbow, and defeats Bouncy T on the way. So first was spring, this is supposed to be summer, but later in the day. Third room, this time facing Bonehead, Cairn, another Bouncy T, Kapar, Blug, Bobo, Cacti, and Sir Kibble. Next set of stairs is more like sunset and still a higher part of a tall tree. Kirby deals with Rockies here. Fourth room, Kirby fights Flora, Fishbones, Bo, Bumber, Mumby, and Propeller, Zeus, Scud, and Scarfy. All flying floating enemies. Fourth staircase is a starry night sky on the top of a tree, and Kirby must be close to the top now. He also dodges Gordos. The fifth room has Kirby fighting flyers like Bronto Burt, Petarans, Turbite, Frigus, and Burnus. After all that, a second crystal shard is revealed, and Kirby picks it up. Kirby then climbs stairs towards a black mass and fights Enzies falling from it. Kirby can tell he's at the boss, so he has a picnic with friends before he takes on the boss. The boss is Miracle Matter, and this is a long fight. A very long fight. Miracle Matter can be described as a icosahedron, so a 20-sided die, but with eyes on all the sides. It's all white with red eyes, so it's pretty scary looking. Miracle Matter has the ability to turn into all the elements Kirby has to fight. First it becomes a green Sawblade creature, and gets beaten with the cutter ability. Next it goes into an ice form and has pieces of ice float around it. Kirby uses Ice Cutter to become an ice skater and deals damage with spins. Next, Miracle Matter becomes orange and launches spikes in 8 directions. Kirby attacks and gets hurt. Kirby at first doesn't realize he needs to hurt Miracle Matter just like how beat Pix, by using the same element to hurt them. But then Kirby bonks himself on the spikes and gets dragged away from the fight by the party. Kirby reapproaches Miracle Matter, and the fight begins anew. It first becomes Brownstone Matter and drops rocks at Kirby. Kirby becomes Rock Kirby and crashes into it to deal some damage, but Kirby gets hurt too. Then becomes a Black Bomb Matter and spores off 4 black bubbles that explode on contact. Kirby eventually sucks up one for the Bomb Kirby ability to do some damage. Next it becomes the Green Cutter Matter, and Kirby gets a piece of its tail to do Cutter Kirby damage, and hits it 3 times to cause a small explosion. Then comes Yellow Electric Matter. It fires off lasers that become orbs of energy for Kirby to suck up for Electric Kirby. Then it becomes Orange Spike Matter and launches 8 spikes out in 8 directions. Then it repeats with Electric and Kirby gets 2 electric hits in. Kirby then goes double Stone Kirby to finish off Stone Matter, but he gets hurt so badly he's 1 hit away from getting knocked out again. Then comes Blue Ice Matter, and Kirby gets Ice for Ice Kirby, and he hits it 3 times to cause another explosion. 3 powers down now. Next comes Electric, and Kirby has a plan. He mixes powers to become Fridge Kirby, and heals himself back to full health for a while. Then Kirby gets back into the fight. But then Red Fire Matter happens, and it launches 4 fire gushes in 4 directions. Kirby mixes Bomb with Fire for Fireworks Kirby, but drops it to fight Electric Matter. Then Needle Matter happens again, and Kirby does 2 hits. Fire Matter again, Kirby goes Fire Kirby and burns until it explodes. 4 powers down. Kirby gets hit by an electric laser, but gets another electric ball to explode the Electric Matter now, so 5 powers. Needle Matter again and defeated simply. 6 powers down. Bomb Matter again, harms Kirby, but Kirby blows them up. So 7 powers down, and with that, Kirby grabs the last crystal shard from the exploded Miracle Matter. The party stare at the crystal, and it cleans up the sky, and the dark cloud flies away. Everyone cheers and they meet the Queen. Everyone says bye, and Kirby handshakes with Ribbon. King Dedede gets teary eyes as they start to fly away. Then after everyone is gone, the Queen looks at Ribbon with an evil grin. Kirby then realizes and starts counting his nubs, then Waddle Dee's nubs, and King Dedede's gloves, and Adeleine's fingers and toes. Kirby realizes they're missing one, and before the Queen can pounce on Ribbon, Kirby flies down and grabs her, and they fly back to the palace where they forgot one. So the bad ending happens if you don't get all shards. Just like they did with the Rainbow Pieces or the Sword Pieces in Dreamland games with the animal friends. So just like Dreamland 3, the ending credits draws are different. They are sketches instead of full-on paintings, while the true version ending will give you the painted versions of these drawings in the credits. So let's address the credits for Bad End here real quick. We get a drawing of Ribbon, then Popstar, then Items, then Crystals, then I-Cubed, Ghost Knight, and Mumby, then HRH, then Waddle Dee, then Mario and Glom, then the Queen with Bedhead, then Yariko and other enemies like Tick and Galbo, then a mouth with teeth, then King Dedede, then Flores, then random fairies, then Adeleine self-portrait, then a Sprout, then a Dark Matter, then a very crude drawing of Zero Two, which should concern us since we've never seen them at this point in the game, then Kirby with an apple, and lastly, the Crystal. He goes back to title screen and you'll see you have 99% complete at this point. So Kirby and crew go back to the palace to look for the second Crystal Shard. So it's in the third room. Kirby notices the floor is a sun with circles of red and orange, meaning Needle and Fire. Kirby gets a combination for fire arrows and Kirby hits the bullseye. And with that, Kirby finds the last Crystal Shard and the party rushes to the throne room and finds Miracle Matter there again. Kirby's confused, but they fight it again. Kirby knows what he's doing this time and easily defeats Miracle Matter again. This time the dark cloud flies away and explodes. Then the crystal activates and attacks the queen to everyone's shock. This reveals that Dark Matter is possessing her too. Waddle Dee runs to catch her, but he's too slow and she thuds to the ground. Then everyone looks up as the dark cloud flies away and becomes a huge cloud in the sky. Kirby then pulls out his phone and calls over the Warp Star, and it's way bigger than normal. It knocks Kirby away and everyone jumps on it, and then Kirby jumps on. As funny as this scene is, it was a chance for Kirby to be super badass, honestly. Kirby waves bye to the fairies as he and the party fly off into the Dark Star. So this is the final stage in battle. Kirby lands on a platform of hexagons and runs into many NZs. So Kirby realizes this is where the NZs are coming from. Kirby rampages forward and Waddle Dee opens up a floor panel for Kirby to progress further. Adeleine then paints Kirby a 1-up just in case, and King Dedede launches Kirby into the sky with his hammer. Up in the sky, Kirby flies up and Ribbon catches him, and the Crystal. And they see a being in white with a halo and red wings and white wings. At first they see it with 2 eyes and a mouth, and then it reveals it's actually the mouth is the eye, and it's a big one, a very big one. Also has a bandage on top of its head under the halo. Ribbon says, "I cast gun," and gives Kirby the crystal as a gun. It's called Ribbon's Crystal. In the power slots, it's a ribbon for her since she's flying and carrying Kirby, and the crystal for the other slot. Ribbon carries Kirby and flies him around to dodge attacks, while Kirby fires blasts from the crystal. This creature is known as Zero Two. It's theorized to be the shell of Zero from Dreamland 3. We see Zero break out of an outer shell and fight Kirby in Dreamland 3, so what happened to the outer shell? Maybe it became this thing. It's called Zero Two after all. So Kirby's shooting crystals into the eye, while the eye is shooting sparking energy at the pair. The fight is a lot of bobbing and weaving because you need to dodge the attacks, but you also need to get your shots in, and you need the eye to move in a direction where it can get hit by the crystal shots. So it's a lot of just back and forth to try to not get hurt while hurting them. Eventually, when the pair hurt the eye enough, Zero Two is stunned and the pair fly up to destroy their halo, and then hit the band-aid on their head. Maybe that's where Zero tore out of it. After hitting that spot, their bottom gives out and their toxic green innards push out. Kirby and Ribbon then fly down there to shoot the roots and dodge noxious gas. Eventually, Zero Two regains normalcy, and the process goes over again. By the way, when they shoot the halo, it goes from yellow to red with blues and greens in between, so a color spectrum. One of many happening in this game. Eventually, after a few rounds of this, Kirby and Ribbon nearly defeat Zero Two, but Kirby wants to make sure this creature will never be a threat ever again, so he starts attacking Zero Two's wings when they're stunned. Breaking up the red ends ruins Zero Two's mobility, making it easier to defeat them. On his last legs and wings, Zero Two fires its blast erratically, but Kirby and Ribbon have gotten used to it and fire with deadly precision. Finally, Zero Two can take no more and they explode in a white light. Sensing Zero Two had nothing left in them, including no second form, the party jump onto the Warp Star and fly away as the Dark Star explodes. When they return to Ripple Star, there's fireworks and an award ceremony where everyone gets a crystal shard. Ribbon then gives a kiss on the cheek for Kirby and they both blush. Kirby dances and falls down the stairs and everyone tries to catch Kirby as he falls. The end. So now the end credits with true ending, we get fully colored Ribbon, fully colored Pop Star, items colored, those crystals were picks, then we see the 4 enemies colored, and then we see HRH, then Waddle Dee on a pillar, then we see Glom is a big eel and it ate a Mario, then we see Queen Ripple with her hair done, then we see Gabon hit Galbo with a bone, which means Galbo breathes fire, which burns Tick, and Tick shoots up their spike, which hits Yariko in the butt, then Yariko's spear hits Gabon. Then we see the teeth was the inside of Acro's mouth. Then King Dedede's looking cool. Then Pretty Flora. Then Cute Fairies. Then Adeleine self-portrait. Then we see a Whispered Woods Jr. which grew from that sprout. Then we see a Dark Matter, and then 02 with bloody wings. Then Kirby eating the apple, and lastly the crystal fully colored. The end. Now let's talk about the extras like minigames, boss rush, and sound test. The minigames can be played with up to 4 players with 4 colors for Kirby, Adeleine, Waddle Dee, and King Dedede. There's 4 difficulties: easy, normal, hard, and intense. And the next highest doesn't unlock until you finish the current highest. The first game we'll talk about is Bumper Crop Bump. In the game, the character holds baskets to catch falling fruit. Players can bump each other out of the way by switching places with each other to catch fruit. The winner is the one with the most fruit, but you can lose all your points if you catch an exploding fruit. For intense difficulty, they catch crystals falling from a rainbow instead. Characters do look funny when they bump each other, especially Kirby with these bulging eyes. Next we'll talk about 100-yard hop. Same characters and difficulties. This time you hit one button to hop 1 space, another button to hop 2 spaces. The idea is you're hopping down 100 spaces and some spaces will impede you with things like puddles, frogs, lily pads, banana peels, pitfalls, floppers, and turtle shells that rise and fall. On easy, the others make a lot of mistakes. Medium, they make less mistakes. Hard, they make a couple mistakes. But on intense, oh boy, it's tough. They make like almost no mistakes. Like 1 mistake. You have to make 0 mistakes. It took me 20 tries to win. By the way, the music is Gourmet Race, and like Bumper Crop, the intense stage is the prettiest. In this stage, they're skipping stones on a pretty lake instead of just a track. The third and last minigame is the most popular, Checkerboard Chase. In this mode, everyone tries to take each other out by destroying the platform under each other. Everyone gets 5 falls. The stage starts as an 8x8 and shrinks by 1 each time someone is eliminated. So the final matchup is in a 4x4. There's a lot of strategy, reaction time, and planning that goes into this fight. This game returns in Return to Dreamland Deluxe, and it's definitely a favorite of mine. As the difficulty goes up, the game gets fast and the enemies get more devious. Something interesting is how everyone slams the ground with their hand except Adeleine. She uses her paintbrush to hit the ground and fire out her blast. Everyone's attacks are color-coded to show who did what to who. Player 1's is pink-red, yellow for second player, green for third player, and blue for fourth. Easy to Hard has a background of a volcano showing the players are fighting in the sky, and Intense is Popstar, showing they're fighting in space now. Boss Rush is called Boss Battle, and you have to win the fight with base Kirby only, no powers. It's a fun fight, but it can be tedious. The fights are always in planet order. When you lose, you get a shot of everyone looking sad in the screen saying it's hopeless. If you win but take any damage, you get the party throwing Kirby into the air. There's confetti and says congratulations. If you win without taking any damage, you get a different image. It's Kirby with all the boss's powers. It looks hella weird. The screen says perfect. Kirby has a lava skirt, HRE pincer hands, Acro fin on the back, also 02 wings in the back, Wispy Wood's hair, HRH's head on top of that, mini picks floating around Kirby's head, and 2 eyes on his cheeks. So weird looking. I think the eyes are of course Miracle Matter. That's what the heck. Ugh. Sound test is your usual sound test, but there are some interesting things like the faces Kirby makes while listening to music and wearing his star headphones. Kirby makes 4 different faces. It would be interesting to know if this is like later color notes and the songs were made by 4 different people, but the music credits is only Jun Ishikawa and Hirokazu Ando. We didn't know the names for some of these songs until the anniversaries happened, like the 30th Anniversary Music Festival and the 25th Anniversary Orchestra. Sound effects 263 to 265 are my favorite since they're Kirby doing their classic hi. Well done, Makiko Omoto. So that's everything with the game. Woo! Oh wow, that was a lot of things. Alright, the info card. So there's info cards you can collect in the picnics, and there's a card for everything in the game. There's everything as far as enemies go, and then Flutter for some reason, the butterfly, and that's it. Section 7, Interesting Facts and Glitches. First, I'll mention a glitch that hit me. So, when you're going for a perfect score, I killed 02 and got hit as the game faded out. It still showed I took 0 damage, but it still counted, so I didn't get the perfect screen at first. I had to do it again to get the perfect screen. That wasn't cool. When making the music track Studying the Factory, Jun Ishikawa wanted to get a very specific sound out of his guitar, so he put his glasses between the strings. He got the sound he wanted, but he also broke his glasses from jamming them too hard. Miracle Matter song was made last minute, reusing parts from other songs. This works considering what Miracle Matter is. I was surprised with this one. The energy drink isn't in this game. That's in almost every game. Another surprise is there's no Kirby dance, but the music is in the sound test. Wonder why they didn't do it. Interesting one, the Onigiri Rice Ball was replaced with a sound for international release, but you still see Waddle Dee with one at the end stage picnic. Gonna mention this one just cause. Some think the ending cutscene is a reference of the end of Star Wars since they also have a medal giving ceremony. I think it's at least possible, but like, sure? Didn't know this one. Until Epic Yarn, this was the only game where Kirby smiles as he walks. Usually he's neutral faced. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Now, there's a debug mode and a cheat code mode to get 100% on the 3rd game file. File 1 doesn't matter, you just need file 2 to be empty and file 3 to be started, so 0%. You plug in 2 controllers, and then hold L on the 2nd controller, and hit C up, R, C right, C left, and start, and you get a 1-up sound, and the third file is 100%. Apparently this will work on Wii U Virtual Console and Switch Online, but not Wii Console or Kirby's Dream Collection, because there's no L button in those. That's interesting. There's a big test room that can only be accessed by GameShark. Okay, so let's talk about pre-release powers. So there was a trailer for the game in 1998, and it showed the stone Kirby could jump. Ice Bomb was a generic Ice Bomb. Just think of Ice Bomb, and there you go. And Electric Stone was a computer chip, so that's interesting. Final interesting fact, I was referencing this when we talked about Shiverstar, and that is Sound Test 398. It's a sped-up track of a Japanese woman reciting Iroha, which is a Buddhist poem about how nothing lasts. Likely a commentary on the condition of Earth Shiverstar before everyone was forced to evacuate the planet. It's to believe that this would have been likely played on the TVs in the mall. We get something similar decades later with Kirby and the Forgotten Lands DLC with Nayshell. Section 8. The credits and interesting things about the staff. The director Shinichi Shimomura is a mystery in the present. They are the father of the Dark Matter Trilogy, starting with Kirby's Dream Land 2. They also worked on map design for Dream Land 2. The first game was Hyperzone, then they worked on Kirby's Adventure, Pinball Land, and Dream Course as map designer, before landing the director role. They're also a mapper under Sakurai for Superstar, before directing Kirby's Dream Land 3 and Kirby 64 to complete the Dark Matter Trilogy. Their final game is Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland before they disappeared forever. Rumors are they retired or died in 2003. By the way, Hyperzone was their first game in the name of the final area in Dreamland 3, so that's pretty cool there. Business people theorize he retired in protest because lots of people got promotions, but he didn't. His next game will be his last game, Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland. Said that already. I know a little bit more about him. All I can say is he is still alive as of 2022 or 2024, I forget. Scarf has itty-bitty tiny connections in Nintendo. So, chief programmer was Teruyuki Gunji. We talked about him before. He started as a programmer for Kirby's Adventure and then did Dream Course before Superstar. He'll program a few more times before becoming a project manager. His last project was Picross 3D Round 2 in 2015. This and Kirby's Dream Land 3 are the only times he was chief programmer. Now we got a bunch of programmers. So first up is Katsuhiro Sakota. He worked on 3 Kirby games at this point, Dreamland 3, Superstar Stacker, and now 64, but did other HAL games like Vegas Stakes, back when HAL didn't only do Kirby games. Imagine Vegas Stakes now having Kirby as a dealer. So their second HAL game is Kirby's Dreamland 3, and then they got promoted chief programmer for Superstar Stacker, before going back to regular programmer for a couple more Kirby games. They eventually become the program manager for Kirby's Air Ride and do technical support for Kirby Star Allies and Blowout Blast before becoming team support for all Kirby games post-Super Kirby Clash. In 2019, they were also a programmer for Box Boy Box Girl. Their current last game is Kirby's Dream Buffet. Hisao Takahashi did lots of programming under HAL, starting with Superstar. They become production assistant over many games and eventually the project manager for Kirby Fighters 2, then lead producer for Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Yoshimi Takahashi was a programmer on Kirby's Adventure and Dream Course. They tool programmed for Dreamland 2 before going back to programming Kirby 64, Nightmare in Dreamland, and Kirby's Air Ride and Canvas Curse. They then moved over to team support for Kirby and Box Boy. Their last game as team support is currently Kirby and the Forgotten Land, the Switch 2 edition. That's an interesting career right there. Tetsuya Abe, we've seen them before as a programmer for Kirby's Adventure and Dream Course. He started with HAL in 1988 doing Agerland, which is a Lolo game. He'll program a few more Kirby games before becoming project manager, which is still his role to this day. He was project manager for Star Allies in 2018, then became localization manager. He started becoming project manager with Kirby Canvas Curse and was only chief programmer once, and that was with Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland. Yasuyuki Nagashima, this is their third game. They'll eventually work on 4 more Kirby games with Superstar Ultra being their last one. They were a programmer for all these jobs except Air Ride, where they were technical support. Koichi Watanabe, this is their first Kirby job unless you count Super Smash Bros. They'll be programming for all Super Smash Bros. Games and only come back to Kirby for Air Ride and Air Riders. Which, you know, is with Sakurai, so that makes sense. Now there are a ton of designers. First up is Kenichiro Kita, and he has a heck of a career. Kirby's Dream Land 3 is their first game, and they work on design for many Kirby games going forward. And they work on all but the first Super Smash Bros. We'll see them in many Kirby games credits. Eventually they'll become a lead designer starting with Kirby Triple Deluxe. They're the lead character artist for Kirby's Forgotten Lands, so they might be the one to love or blame for any designs you have feelings about. Interestingly, they were the supervisor role for Smash Brawl and Ultimate. Reiko Iwao has a small career. It's this, design support for Smash Melee, and then lastly, Air Grind Team for Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland. Air Grind Team, I'm gonna have to look that one up to see what the heck that is. But we'll see when we get to Nightmare in Dreamland. Next designer is Michiko Takahashi, who would later become Michiko Sakurai. That's right, this is Sakurai's wife. This is her third game ever. She started out as a designer with Star Stacker and then designed menus and maps in the first Smash Bros. Before coming back and designing for Kirby 64. Then going back to design menus and characters and stages for Smash Bros. Melee. Her last Kirby game would be Kirby Air Ride, alongside her husband, unless you count the Smash games as Kirby games. She would work on every Sora LTD game with her last credit, currently being Kirby Air Riders with UI design. You can definitely tell since the UI feels a bit like Smash. In case you're curious, they got married in 2008, around the time Brawl was released. Hiro Takashita, this is their second game. They also designed for Kirby's Dream Land 3, Nightmare in Dreamland, and Kirby's Air Ride, and that's it. Shigeru Hashiguchi, they have 25 credits and all under Hell. Started with Arcana in 1992 as director and scriptwriter, then did design for various Kirby games starting with Adventure. Their last design game was Return to Dreamland. They then went on to team support from 2016-2020 with every game under HAL, then moving on to localization from 2022 to present, and their last game currently is Kirby Forgotten Land Switch 2 Edition. Tetsuya Mochizuki started on as staff on Kirby's Pinball Land, then got a special thanks in Alcahest, then they were a designer for Kirby Superstar, and then Kirby 64. Interestingly, they did coding for Okage Shadow King, an RPG on the PlayStation 2 that I enjoyed. They then came back to do design for many Kirby games, then they became project management for Forgotten Land and Return to Dreamland Deluxe, so they've been with HAL for 30 years. Tomomi Minami is a rare breed for the time, a female game dev. She works at HAL to this day. She first started as a mapper for Superstar, and then worked on Dreamland 3 as mapper, then moving on to design jobs for 64, Nightmare in Dreamland, and Kirby's Air Ride. Landing design director for Canvas Curse, then becoming a motif designer for every Kirby game between Return to Dreamland and Kirby Star Allies. And at the moment I theorize she's potentially the second ever Kirby voice. Sakurai did Chesto, and I think she did Tedia? Tedia is clearly a female voice, and she's the only female on staff at the time with Superstar, so I think it's her. Unless it's someone on special thanks with Kirby Superstar, that's it. Her last credit currently is field artist for Kirby in the Forgotten Land Switch 2 Edition. Sane Kubota, their first game was Kirby's Block Ball, then Dreamland 3, and they'll return to work on Nightmare in Dreamland. Air Ride, Superstar Ultra, Super Smash Bros. Melee, and Canvas Curse as designer in various fashions. This person's career was purely on Kirby games, good for them. Superstar Ultra would be their last game, and it was as motif designer. Yuichi Tsukino, designer for Super Smash Bros., and that's it. It's this and that, that's their credits, that's all of it. Tatsuhiro Tanoe was CG designer for Kirby Superstar and was designer here, working on 13 Kirby games. From here they went on to design Canvas Curse and Superstar Ultra. He also worked on Wii Sports and Wii Play. They became technical support for Kirby and Box Boy, starting with Return to Dreamland. Their last credit currently is Kirby in the Forgotten Land Switch 2 Edition for technical support. Tadashi Hashikura, they have 20 credits and nearly all of them are Kirby jobs or Smash Brothers. He started with Superstar being a CG designer. He did motif design on Kirby Star Allies, Planet Robobot, Triple Deluxe, and Nightmare in Dreamland. He designed courses in Air Ride. Starting in Forgotten Land, he became a field artist. His newest credit is the Switch 2 version. He did the effects designs for Samus, DK, Fox, Kirby, and Pikachu in Smash 64. He designed a ton of characters or motifs for Kirby. Masanobu Yamamoto, well, here comes a heavy hitter in his own right. He did video and cinematics for a PlayStation 3DO game called Starblade and also did Pyramid Control. He started with HAL as designer for Pokemon Snap. His first Kirby game would be here with Kirby 64. He gets special thanks for Air Ride, Canvas Curse, Superstar Ultra, Return to Dreamland, Triple Deluxe, Kirby Fighters, Dedede's Drum Dash Deluxe, Box Boy, P-Cross, Planet Robobot, Team Kirby Clash Deluxe, Blowout Blast, Battle Royale, and Star Allies. What was he doing to get so many special thanks? He was also creative support for Squeak Squad. He becomes character coordinator for Rainbow Curse, and then he gets supervisor for Super Smash Bros. Brawl, 3DS, Wii U, and Ultimate. Also, he was character supervisor for Epic Yarn and producer for Mass Attack. This man was very busy. He stopped at Smash Ultimate though, that's where he stopped and retired. Tsuyoshi Wakayama started with HAL in 1990 and worked on a bunch of Kirby and Super Smash Bros. Games as designer or chief designer. He was the chief designer for Smash 64. His last job was designer for Planet Robobot in 2016. Then he came out of retirement to do character animation for Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. That is a big gap of time. Hitoshi Kakawa. This dude got 23 credits all under HAL. He started as a debugger on Shanghai in 1989 for HAL. Then he started designing with Arcana in 1992, moving on to CG designer with Kirby Superstar. Then he was the character designer in Super Smash Bros. On Mario, Luigi, Fox, Yoshi, Pikachu, Kirby, and Jigglypuff models, and made the motions for Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi. Then we'll see him in almost every Kirby game as designer. He then became level designer for Box Boy and did the drafts for the sequels. His newest credit is character artist for Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Satoko Nakamura only does 4 Kirby games before moving on to other things. Designed for Kirby's Dreamland 3, Super Smash Bros., and Kirby 64, and Kirby Air Ride. Besides that, they worked on Danganronpa, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and Pokemon Ranger. Quite a varied career. Kunio Watanabe started their career with Super Smash Bros. 64 as a designer. They went on to design for Kirby 64, Smash Melee, Air Ride, and Planet Robobot. He did cinematics for Superstar Ultra, Return to Dreamland, and Triple Deluxe. He was a concept planner for Dedede's Drum Dash Deluxe. He did technical support for Star Allies as his last credit. The composers are, of course, two Kirby legends. First is Jun Ishikawa, and we all know this legend. He's been with HAL since 1989. He's worked on nearly every single HAL and Kirby game. It might sound wrong, but you can tell which games he didn't compose songs for, because they only have one or two memorable songs instead of most of them being so. Think of your favorite Kirby song. Very high chance he made it. Think of your top 3 Kirby songs. Guaranteed chance at least one of them is his. His newest credit, of course, is on the newest game, Kirby Forgotten Land Switch 2 Edition. He's not on Kirby Air Riders, because this is Sakurai with his own team, so they got their own musical people for that one. Same thing for Hirokazu Ando. He's not on Kirby Air Riders, unfortunately. That's another legend there. He's been there since 1990, so these two worked together for a very long time. Any songs in your top 3 that are not Jun Ishikawa are probably his, unless it's Forgotten Land, where they started to get new composers, new proteges, and those are pretty good too. These two do songs and sounds, and lately Hirokazu Ando has been the lead in music, while Jun Ishikawa has been the lead in sounds, but they both still make a lot of songs. His newest credit, of course, is the same as Jun Ishikawa's. I love these two guys because they're both experimental. They're both doing different ideas with music in two different directions, and they're both doing great, amazing jobs. Like, the more jazzy stuff happening with Forgotten Land, that was Jun Ishikawa. Like, the more experimental, really out there stuff. But Hirokazu Ando was experimenting with more, like, epic-sounding stuff. Roche Limit is Ando. Was it Facing the Darkness? That's Ando as well. We got Jun Ishikawa, of course, doing, like, the more alien songs and more jazzy songs. That was all pretty cool stuff. And, of course, just quick aside, their proteges, the new guys, them doing their great songs, like, of course, Welcome to New World being from Ogasawa, if I remember correctly. So the future's so bright with the music, and it started so strong with these two guys being a great foundation. Assistant directors are Kazuya Konishi first, so their first job in video games was as assistant director for Kirby 64. Curious what they did beforehand to get assistant director, because that's a big deal. They work on the manual for Smash Melee, and then artwork chief for Nightmare in Dreamland and Air Ride. Then just artwork for Amazing Mirror, then design for Campus Curse, then special things for Return to Dreamland and Triple Deluxe. Then their technical support for Rainbow Curse Star Allies, Forgotten Land, Dream Buffet, Return to Dreamland Deluxe, and lastly Switch 2 Forgotten Land. That's a curious career path. They fell from assistant director to just design and things like that. Maybe they just like doing that better than being a director, I don't know. Ryuichi Noguchi only has 3 credits. They worked on a game for The Ring. I had no idea The Ring had a game. They did character graphics, and then they were an assistant director for Kirby 64, and their last credit was a special thanks for Smash Melee, and then they're done with video game development. Quite the opposite trajectory from the other guy. Assistant managers, there's 3 of them, versus Ryuki Karaoka was the project manager for Kirby Superstar, Dreamland 3, Star Stacker, Smash 64, and Melee and Kirby's Air Ride. He got demoted to assistant manager for Kirby 64. He started as a debugger for HAL on Agerland in 1988. After Air Ride, he debugged or tested Amazing Mirror, Campus Curse, and Squeak Squad. Then they became project manager for other companies doing PlayStation and Xbox games. Yoshiki Suzuki started as a programmer on Kirby's Adventure and will contribute to many Kirby games. Eventually, they'll direct the first P-Cross game under HAL. They're still active to this day, but left after being project manager for Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. They then moved on to Secret Animator for Monster Hunter Wilds. It's curious, since they're a programmer and manager, what are they doing for Secret Animation? Like, that's interesting. Kensuke Tanabe, we talked about him many times before with other Kirby game credits. He's a living legend I didn't know about until Kirby's Dream Course. His first game was Yomei Koji Doki Doki Panic, which he directed. He then directed and, of course, designed Super Mario Bros. 2, and from there, he has done so many things. He's directed, he's map designed, written scripts, supervised, translated, and so many other things. This man is on the credits for over 140 video games for Nintendo. In the last decade, he's become a producer for a lot of the major Nintendo titles. His most recent release is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond as a producer. Voice actor credits are Makiko Emoto and Masahiro Sakurai. We know who these two are. This was Makiko Emoto's second job as Kirby, so it's easy to count the years she's been Kirby since she started in 1999. She also voiced Ness, by the way. Prior to Kirby, she did 2 voices in video games. She'll voice many others in the future, including Lyn from Fire Emblem and Viridi from Kid Icarus. Then we have Masahiro Sakurai voicing King Dedede's sounds. There's an interesting tradition of Kirby directors voicing King Dedede minus Shimomura for some reason, it seems. A key thing is Sakurai did not want to interfere with the development of this game. So all he did was the voice, and that's it. He did not want to make any notes or comments. He wanted Shimomura to stand on his own feet. He didn't want to be overbearing like some other creators of characters have done. People like to accuse Miyamoto of that, and I don't know much about that story, but that's something that I've heard people say before. Localization manager was Leslie Swan, and she's a legend in her own right. She has over 270 credits on 250 games. Currently, she is the voice of Princess Peach in many games since Super Mario 64. She was localization manager for over 200 games. That is a lot of games. When it comes to Kirby, she started with Kirby 64 and then was on localization for almost every Kirby game after, so we have her to thank and blame for any lore we like and dislike in the West. From what I can tell, she retired in 2021 after localizing The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. With her were two localizers. William Trinan has 143 credits. He has worked on localization, advising, text, product development, publishing, managing his own localizations, and many other things for Nintendo. He localized Kirby 64 to Squeak Squad, managing only the Squeak Squad localization. Michelle Powers, only 20 credits, and only works on Kirby 64 and Tilt and Tumble. They worked on some random games like Excitebike 64, NBA 3-in-3 featuring Kobe Bryant, and Dead Space 3. That's a random one right there. There's a bunch of special thanks for this one. Satoshi Ishida does public relation jobs in the future and some supervision. There's no telling why they got special thanks here. They've been getting special thanks as early as New Ghostbusters 2 in 1990 with HAL. Their first Kirby special thanks was Kirby's Dream Course. Their last one will be Kirby Fighters 2 with special thanks. For public relations, they did Kirby Battle Royale. They worked on Box Boy, P-Cross, and Part-Time UFO as well. I really enjoy Part-Time UFO and Box Boy, so that's cool. Shieko Obakane only has special thanks, starting with Kirby's Dream Course. Their only non-special thanks was public relations for Campus Curse and Superstar Ultra, and part of the HAL debug team for Earthbound. Hisatoshi Takeuchi got their first special thanks with Pokemon Snap. This is their first Kirby special thanks. They'll get a few more with their last credit being Rainbow Curse. They were a sub-game director for Kirby's Return to Dreamland. Tetsuya Natoya did art for Dreamland 3 and Star Stacker, but here they got special thanks for Kirby 64. They get a special thanks here and will again for Nightmare in Dreamland and Triple Deluxe, but will do art for other Kirby games. Their first start was as character designer for Arcana. They've been a HAL worker for their whole career. Senji Hiro's got a special thanks for Kirby's Dream Course and now Kirby 64. They only got special thanks for Kirby except Congress Curse for Test and Squeak Squad for Debug. Squeak Squad will be their last game. Shiharu Ito started out as a technical programmer for Pokemon Stadium in Japan, then technical support for Pokemon Stadium in the US. They got special thanks for Kirby 64 and will do technical support for Return to Dreamland and Kirby's Dream Collection Special Edition. Takaaki Kazuno, first credit is special thanks for Dream Course with nothing until Kirby 64, then they'll do Development Environment Team for Wii Sports and Wii Play, then another special thanks for Triple Deluxe and Star Allies. Then doing technical support for Forgotten Land, Dream Buffet, Return to Dreamland Deluxe, and Switch to Forgotten Land. Kazuhiro Mizusawa got a special thanks for Kirby 64 and then programmer for 8 more games. One game technical support being Super Kirby Clash. They worked on various Kirby games like Smash Melee, Mass Attack, and so on. Their last current credit is Kirby Forgotten Land Switch 2 version as a programmer. My best guess is they came in and helped with programming on something as their first job or got them the job later. Jun Yamazaki was in gaming for only 4 years, starting with Japanese Pokemon Stadium as technical programmer. They worked on all HAL properties until Smash Bros. Melee as Sis Dolphin. Really curious what that is. For Kirby, this is the only game they worked on, and it's a special thanks. The HAL debug team got a special thanks, and of course, they were there to debug, so there you go. Then there's a very special thanks section, which I find curious. Minoru Arakawa was married to the daughter of the president of Nintendo. He was the president of Nintendo of America from 1980 to 2002. He had 87 credits to his name, starting with Donkey Kong Country. Most are special thanks, and some are as producer or executive producer. He gets a very special thanks here, and in NOA special thanks next time with Tilt and Tumble, NOA being Nintendo of America. Here's one of those interesting facts you can only learn from reading the credits. This guy right here. He married into the business and was in it as president for over 20 years. He was well educated though. He graduated as a civil engineer from Harvard, so it wasn't like he wasn't a smart person. I don't know how much business knowledge he had, but being president for 20 years, he had to know something. I have to assume he was good because those are crucial years for Nintendo in America. Manabu Fukuda got 122 credits to their name. All their special thanks are NOA special thanks, so it can be assumed they were working as part of Nintendo of America. Some of their credits are business development or general manager, so they've got some sort of higher up position. As for Kirby, it's Kirby 64, Tilt and Tumble, and Air Ride. Their last credit was Mario vs. Donkey Kong Tipping Stars on the Wii U as NOA Business Development. Gail Tilden has 54 credits. Their non-special thanks credits were for US Coordination or Project Supervisor. They did a lot of Pokemon games. For Kirby, it's Kirby 64 and Tilt and Tumble. Their last credit being NOA support for The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D in 2011. Yoshihito Ikebata, 41 credits as special thanks, technical support, producer or supervisor. For Kirby, it's special thanks for Kirby 64 and Mass Attack, and that's it. Hironobu Kakui has 110 credits, their special thanks for only a couple games. Most of their credits are technical support. For Kirby, it's 64, Dream Course, and Amazing Mirror. They have 3 technical support credits for Kirby for Nightmare in Dreamland and Air Ride. Their last credit was Progress Management for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Hiroyasu Sasano, this is their only Kirby credit. They have technical support for other Nintendo properties, their last credit being Mario Kart 8 Deluxe technical support. Super Mario Club is a game testing and debugging team for Nintendo, they're on the credits. NOA Product Testing was another group that did what Super Mario Club did. I'm not sure why they were different teams, maybe different testing goals. The Treehouse was a product development division that also did QA testing and live streams eventually. Project manager was Takashi Saito, and he was the director of Kirby's Dream Course and character designer for Adventure. He started with HAL in 1988, designing for Eagerland. He got project manager for Kirby 64 and then worked on Wii Play and Sports and Development Environment team, which will be his last job. But he'll still get special thanks in Smash Melee, Canvas Curse, Ultra, and Smash Ultimate. And then he showed up out of nowhere 15 years later by being a character artist on Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe? That is random. Progress manager was Kimiyoshi Fukui. They only progress managed Kirby 64 and that's it. They did work on other games like F-Zero X, Pokemon Stadium, and Star Fox 64 3D, all as progress manager. I guess they were pretty good at it, but they left in 2011. 3 producers, first one, Masayoshi Tanamura. They were a producer their entire 31-game career. They produced all Kirby games from 64 to Blow Up Blast, minus Tilt and Tumble. Their last job was supervisor for Smash Ultimate. Hiroaki Suga is a legend. Potentially they were a founding member since they worked on F1 Racer, which was the 3rd game HAL made in their first year of game development. We talked about him before. His first credit with Kirby was Adventure as chief programmer, then Kirby's Dream Course as map CAD programmer, and Star Stacker as a programmer. His time as producer started with Kirby's Dreamland 3, and continued to Kirby 64 and goes forward to many other Kirby games. His last job was as a supervisor for Kirby Planet Robobot, which is when he retired in 2016. Kenji Miki is a longtime Nintendo man and legend in his own right. He started out working on Ice Climbers and Wario Woods. During the N64 and GameCube eras, he assisted Shigeru Miyamoto. Eventually, he becomes president of the Mario Club in 2004. His only Kirby credits are Kirby 64 and Amazing Mirror. His last game was Wii Sports Resorts in 2009, but he retired in 2011. He worked with Nintendo from 1983 to 2011. That's a nice-sized career. He's always been in a higher level as director or producer. Supervisor credits are Satoru Iwata and Shigeru Miyamoto. These two are, of course, the biggest legends. They deserve their own episode someday. Satoru Iwata was a founding member of HAL, and he led HAL when Kirby was born. He was an amazing programmer that you need to thank for Earthbound getting finished, and for his achievements in Pokemon while also keeping HAL from dying. He eventually becomes the president of Nintendo. Shigeru Miyamoto is the father of Mario and Link's franchises. He was instrumental in the creation of hundreds of games. No one has more credits than Miyamoto except, of course, the final credit on the list. The last credit is, of course, Hiroshi Yamauchi, the president of Nintendo, the man in charge of Nintendo for 52 years. He made Satoru Iwata his successor. He saw Nintendo through from NES to GameCube. That's it for credits. So many amazing and interesting people and stories there. Oh, wow. Section 9, Reflection and Rankings. Let's finish this out. I, Lost Scarf, have grown up with Kirby games my whole life. I was 5 when the first game came out, and it was my first Game Boy game. I already played Mario and The Legend of Zelda and Samus on the NES, but this is the one that resonated with me the most. I played Dreamland 1 for hundreds of hours, which is crazy because that game's so short. I played so much of it, also with Pinball Land as well, and then Dream Course and so on and so forth. Eventually Superstar would be my favorite, and I'd play that for hundreds of hours as well. Then 64 was my next favorite, probably second favorite when I finished it. I have always had fond memories of this game. I think the game still holds up, and is the best of the 3. I'm sorry to fans of Dreamland 3, but even when I was a kid, I did not like it. It's just, did not care for Dreamland 3, ever. What makes Kirby 64 so good is it is a culmination of everything that has been done before. Lessons learned from the last 2 games and everything. Because the power mixing, of course, is the animal friends, but now it's just powers. Friendships with other characters, you got Kirby and Ribbon, they're a very good core point there. Finding the hidden objects is a lot better here. The puzzles aren't that obtuse except for maybe 1 or 2, which is the same for Dreamland 2 and Dreamland 3, but they were just so much worse. They were so much worse in 2 and 3. 64 feels doable at all ages. You don't need to know anything or memorize anything too crazy. Something else that really helps with this is that I love the cutscenes and I love Kirby and Ribbon. I thought Kirby and Choo Choo were very cute together, but the ending cutscene made it Kirby and Ribbon for me from that point on. I have loved the many fan arts and comics of Kirby and Ribbon over the years. Something fun is the mangas play with Choo-Choo and Ribbon being Kirby's love interest as well, depending on the author. So there's a lot of fun there too. I like the creativity of how the other members were utilized in this. It would have been cool for them to have their own levels and stuff, but it was pretty cool how you have them all utilized to help Kirby out, and them being in the cutscenes too, and how they all help out to get to the final battle or in the final battle with Ribbon. I like that a lot. Also, I really like the final battle. This is one of my favorites. Zero Two is one of my favorite final battles of all time. The music's really good. It's a struggle for victory there. It's just great. It's not too bombastic like later on with Robobot and with Forgotten Land, which I do love. I love those endings so much. But Zero Two's fight is pretty dang cool. Just quick aside, just how insane is Forgotten Land, right? Forgotten Land's final fight is just crazy. You got the rooftop battle, and then you've got the Optimus Prime Kirby fight at the end, and then it's a beam struggle, and then you Isekai Elphalus. That ending was just so good. I need to rank all the final battles someday, and I'm gonna have a hard time having Forgotten Land not be number 1. Sometimes the obvious winner is the obvious winner. But anyway, I digress. With that list, who knows, some more Kirby games will come out by the time I finally get to Forgotten Land, and we'll see what other amazing things happen there. Back on topic though, Kirby 64 is very good. There's some really good music here. I think the best OST of all time is still Superstar right now, and Ultra, of course, when it updates that. And then it gets rivaled, of course, later on, but is it fair to say Star Allies? Star Allies is just a culmination of so much. Forgotten Land has an amazing soundtrack. There's a lot of really good soundtracks, but 64 has a pretty good soundtrack. I like it a lot. And I just loved learning about what the experimental things they did for the soundtrack as well. And I really like the gimmick here of power mixing. I wish it would come back. Kirby's gimmicks are always so fun. I love the Robobots. I love power mixing. I love mixing powers with the animal friends. I love Malfo mode. I love leveling up abilities. I love picking your power on the fly like Milky Way wishes. Power mixing is up there with them though. And my favorite thing is how it morphs Kirby about. Like, that's what I really enjoy, how Kirby just becomes all these different shapes. He doesn't just get a hat and powers, he becomes shapes. And I think that's why I really like the level up powers on Malfo mode, because it kind of does that again, where Kirby's got body horror, but also powers and leveling them up, and they're also creative. So I definitely enjoy all that for sure. There's so many episodes I'm going to have to do eventually, which is going to be ranking all the final battles, ranking the different power systems that come out of Kirby, and ranking the OSTs, and ranking so many things. There's so many fun things I can talk about eventually, but I do want to get a lot of things out of the way first, like the anime and such. So let's rank this game and get out of here. In the overall game ranking, it is as follows. 13th place is Kirby's Toy Box, 12th is Kirby's Block Ball, 11th is Kirby's Star Stacker, 10th is Kirby's Super Star Stacker, 9th is Kirby's Avalanche, 8th is Kirby's Pinball Land, 7th is Kirby's Dreamland 3, 6th is Kirby's Dreamland, 5th is Kirby's Dreamland 2, 4th is Kirby's Adventure, and here it is, 3rd place, Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards, 2nd is Kirby's Dream Course, and 1st is Kirby Superstar, because of course it is. So there it is, 3rd place. Kirby 64 is fun, I just have more fun with Dream Course and Superstar, and just have more replayability with those two games. So this was a lot of work, oh my god. The next game on the list will be Tilt and Tumble. That will be done this year for sure. One of the few games I've never got to play growing up, so it'll be fun trying this out on the Switch too. And I hope it supports motion controls, or else I won't be able to talk about that with Tilt and Tumbling portion of the game. If you made it to the end of this episode, share this with your friends. You finished the whole thing, so there's no way you don't think it wasn't worth sharing. Next time will be the first Kirby light novel full dub. It'll be in April. Look forward to that for sure. It was another big project. I had fun. I hope you had fun too. Thanks for coming by, and see you next time.